Chen Xiao, professional chicken murderer for 3 straight years. Let me back up. I got reborn into some ancient Chinese fantasy world with a cheat system called Kill God. Sounds badass, right? Kill stuff, get experience, level up your body. So what did genius me do? I signed up to work in the army kitchen. 3 years of slaughtering chickens and gutting fish, dawn to dusk, while everyone else was out dying gloriously on the battlefield. Smart? Absolutely. Glamorous? Not even a little. See, the frontline soldiers, the infantry guys, they dropped like flies. New batch every few months. Meanwhile, me and my knife were living our best life in the back, quietly grinding stats to 99 times a normal human. My arms could bench press a small horse, but officially, I was just the guy who chopped vegetables suspiciously fast. Then today, my fat boss with his stupid silk hat waddles up and goes, "Congratulations, you've been promoted." Translation: we're throwing you into the meat grinder because everyone else here bribed me, and you didn't. 3 years I carried that kitchen. Half the work, every single day. And this greasy walrus picks me to go die. I stabbed my busted knife into the cutting board so hard it sliced a fly in half. Didn't even aim. That's how you know I'm upset. But panic? Nah, I already had a plan. Infantry is for suckers. Archers, though, they stand in the back, shoot arrows in the general direction of the enemy, and call it a day. In 3 years, maybe 50 archers died total. Infantry, I lost count after the first 1,000. One problem, I'd never touched a bow in my life. My body was 100 times stronger than normal. I'd just maxed that out. By the way, the system literally told me, "Congratulations, you're at the limit, stop being greedy," but strength without aim is just a really buff guy throwing sticks. So I knocked on old Lee's door. He's this retired archer with a bum leg who works in the kitchen now. Sweet old man. I asked to borrow his archery manual, and he looked at me like I'd asked to borrow his kidneys. When I told him about getting kicked out, he cursed our boss 6 ways to Sunday, then sadly handed me a beaten-up yellow book called Basic Bow Techniques, an ancient wooden bow, and 3 arrows. 3 arrows. That's my entire training budget. He kept sighing like he was attending my funeral early. Drank half a bowl of the beef foot soup I bribed him with and shuffled off looking like someone canceled his birthday. Meanwhile, I flipped through that entire book in about 10 seconds flat, 100 times normal memory speed, baby, and my system pinged. Archery. Not yet learned, 0/1, 1 kill point left. One night to figure this out. Tomorrow I either pass the archer exam or get shipped off to the front lines to become a very muscular corpse. No pressure. Okay, so remember how I had 1 kill point left and a prayer? Turns out that's all I needed. See, here's the beautiful thing about maxing out your body to 100 times normal. Everything becomes stupidly easy to learn. A regular person would need 100 kill points just to get beginner status in archery. Me? 1 point. 1. 3 years of grinding chicken murders finally paid off, and I nearly shed a tear. I spent that last precious point. Golden light flashed in my brain, and suddenly I had memories of training with a bow, hundreds of arrows, day after day. Except I never actually did any of it. The system just downloaded it straight into my skull, like some fantasy world Wi-Fi. My archery stat jumped to beginner. Can hit the target from 30 meters away. Not the bullseye, mind you. Just the target. Somewhere on it. Baby steps. I chugged the rest of old Lee's beef foot soup and passed out like a rock. Next morning, I figured, waste not, want not. I'm leaving today, but those fish aren't going to decapitate themselves. Every kill gives me 0.01 points. Yeah, that's basically nothing. But you know what they say, fly meat is still meat. And I should know, because I've literally killed flies for experience points before. My life is glamorous. Meanwhile, the whole kitchen crew gathered around to watch me work like I was some kind of zoo animal. Look at him, still chopping fish even after getting fired. Born to be a workhorse. What an idiot. Real supportive bunch, these guys. Then old Lee came hobbling in with his busted leg, carrying my borrowed bow and 3 arrows, and absolutely lost it on everyone. You ungrateful dogs. This man did half your work every single day, and you're laughing. The old man was shaking with rage, eyes bloodshot. Pretty sure he stayed up all night worrying about me. Honestly, made me feel things I wasn't prepared to feel at 7 in the morning. Everyone went quiet because, well, he was right. But also because they suddenly realized, wait, if I'm gone, Who's doing all my work? The answer hit them like a fish to the face. Them. Mood shifted real fast. I told Old Lee to hold on while I chopped 10 more fish heads. Gotta round out the numbers, you know? I'm being sent to die, but I'm still a professional. Then I tucked my rusty cleaver into my belt like some kind of budget samurai and followed him to the training grounds. Behind us, the comedy show resumed immediately. Did he just say he's gonna practice archery? He's never touched a bow in his life. This is the funniest thing I've heard all year, and honestly, fair point from their perspective. The deputy manager actually left his post just to come watch me embarrass myself. That's how confident everyone was that I'd fail. The man treated my archery practice like it was premium entertainment, popcorn sold separately. But here's what none of these clowns knew. I stepped up to the range, looked at the target 30 meters away, pulled back Old Lee's beat-up yellow bow, arrow knocked, and let it fly. Thwack! Hit the target. First shot. My system dinged, the archery skill bar trembled, and somewhere behind me, I'm pretty sure I heard a jaw drop. So my first arrow hit the target, and my system went ding like a microwave finishing a burrito. 1 experience point, just like that. My archery skill bar moved from 0 to 1 out of 10. Quick math told me something beautiful. 10 arrows on target equals a full level up from beginner to skilled. The system even showed me the whole ranking ladder. Beginner, skilled, small success, great success, perfection. I was basically standing at the bottom of a staircase made of murder and good aim. Old Lee nearly had a heart attack. The man was still fiddling with his arrow bag when he looked up and saw my arrow sticking out of the target, still wobbling. His old eyes went wide as dinner plates. He rubbed them like a cartoon character and stared again. Still there. Still wobbling. You hit it? On your first shot? I played it cool. Just luck, Old Lee, total fluke. He wasn't buying it. Started telling me how when he first picked up a bow, he stood only 10 feet from the target and needed 3 shots to land one. And apparently his teacher thought that was impressive talent. Meanwhile, I'm over here casually sniping from 30 meters on attempt number 1, acting like I accidentally sneezed the arrow into the target. Now here's where the entertainment arrived. The deputy manager, this slimy little bootlicker from the kitchen, showed up with his personal sidekick specifically to watch me fail. These two walked in like they had front row tickets to the Chun Shao humiliation show. Popcorn energy. Maximum smugness. They spotted the arrow in the target and immediately started doing mental gymnastics. Must have been Old Lee's arrow. Yeah. Obviously, no way the fish chopper did that. The boss is so wise for noticing. Real quality detective work, gentlemen. Then I fired my second arrow, right in front of their faces. Thwack. Target. Again. The sidekick's jaw dropped so hard I thought it might need medical attention. The deputy manager mumbled something about good luck, because apparently hitting a target twice in a row from 30 meters with 0 training is just your average Tuesday afternoon coincidence. Old Lee, meanwhile, was having a full spiritual experience. 2 consecutive hits from a guy who'd never held a bow before yesterday. He got so fired up he grabbed his own bow and casually launched an arrow from 60 feet away, nearly nailing the bullseye dead center. Then he stroked his beard and complained about getting old. 60 feet. Almost perfect center. And he calls himself washed up. Old Lee was low-key terrifying. But here's where I had to get strategic. I couldn't keep hitting every shot. That would raise way too many questions. People would start asking uncomfortable things like, how does a fish murderer shoot like a military sniper? And honestly, I didn't have great answers prepared. So I deliberately missed my next 3 shots. Just barely off target each time, close enough that my system still gave me a trickle of experience. 3 missed arrows equaled roughly 1 point. Not efficient, but it kept my cover intact. My skill bar crept up to 3 out of 10. And oh boy, the peanut gallery was thriving. The deputy manager and his little shadow were practically hugging each other with joy. See? I told you it was just luck. 3 misses in a row. I could do better than this clown. Sure you could, buddy. You get winded walking to the latrine, but yeah, you'd be a natural archer. Then the big boss himself showed up. Season Wu Tai, the fat kitchen manager with his stupid white silk hat, the very man who threw me under the war chariot. He waddled onto the training ground like a judge arriving at court, arms crossed over his enormous belly, ready to watch me crumble. The deputy manager immediately started performing, bowing, scraping, tattling on me like a kindergartner. Oh sir, he's terrible. He only got lucky once. 3 straight misses. What a joke. He'll never pass the archer exam, huh? Now, Season Wutai isn't completely stupid. He admitted to himself that cutting me loose was a real loss for the kitchen. I was his best worker by a landslide. But I never bribed him, never slipped him gold or silver, never kissed his boots. In his world, that made me disposable. If I'd just greased his palm a little, he'd have sent someone else to die instead. Simple economics of corruption, and I refused to participate. He stood there watching me with those beady little pig eyes, already writing my obituary in his head. Shame he's wasting time. Dead man walking. That's when I decided the comedy hour was over. Arrow number 6. I pulled back old Lee's creaky yellow bow, felt the string bite into my fingers, aimed at that red center circle, and let it fly. The arrow curved through the air in a beautiful little arc, screaming with speed, and slammed into the dead center of the target. Perfect 10. Bullseye. The arrow shaft vibrated so hard it hummed like an angry wasp. Old Lee almost fell over. 6 shots fired, 3 on target, and one of those 3 was a flawless bullseye. He started mumbling to himself about natural genius, about how my talent exceeded his own, about how he'd never seen anything like it. The deputy manager? Mid-sentence, telling the boss how terrible I was. The word, miss, was literally forming on his lips when my arrow hit center mass. The humming of that arrow shaft was basically the universe laughing directly in his face. Season Wutai's pig eyes narrowed. Even he couldn't deny what he just saw. But I wasn't done being dramatic. I walked to the target, pulled all my arrows back, returned to my position, and did something absolutely unhinged. I knocked 3 arrows at once. All 3, side by side on the bowstring. Every single person on that training ground went silent. I raised the bow, drew back all 3, aimed at the bullseye, and thought to myself, let's see if my little theory about talent is correct. Then I released all 3 arrows simultaneously straight toward that red circle and watched everyone's reality shatter in slow motion. 3 arrows left my bow at the same time, and every single one of them hammered into the target. The middle arrow practically kissed the bullseye. The training ground went so quiet I could hear a mosquito filing a complaint somewhere in the distance. Now let me explain why this worked, because even I was a little surprised. My archery skill came from the system, right? And the system rules said, within 10 zhang distance, arrows can hit the target. Turns out that rule is absolute. It doesn't care if I shoot 1 arrow or 3 or apparently 17. As long as I'm within range, the system forces those arrows onto that target like a magnet dragging nails. The system is basically cheating on my behalf, and I am completely fine with that arrangement. Better yet, 3 arrows hitting meant 3 experience points at once. That's triple the grinding speed. I immediately started imagining battlefield scenarios where I'd knock like 12 arrows and turn enemy soldiers into human porcupines. Beautiful, efficient, terrifying. Everything a growing boy needs. I turned around and found 4 people standing behind me looking like someone had replaced their brains with empty soup bowls. Old Lee's mouth was hanging open so wide a bird could have nested in there. He started muttering about some legendary archer called Wu Sanshi who apparently became famous in the army as a teenager for shooting multiple arrows at once. And here I was, day 1 with a bow, casually replicating the man's signature technique. Old Lee looked like he was witnessing a religious event. The deputy manager and his little sidekick had gone completely pale. Their entire afternoon entertainment plan, watching me suffer and fail, had just exploded in their faces like a firecracker in a toilet. And then there was Season Wutai, the big boss, the fat kitchen tyrant himself. I watched something genuinely fascinating happen on his face. First came the shock, a tiny crack in that smug mask. Then a flash of something cold and dangerous flickered through his beady little pig eyes. But he buried it fast, real fast. Suddenly he transformed into this jolly laughing Buddha character, slapping his enormous belly and grinning at me like we were lifelong drinking buddies. Brother Chen Xiao, I always knew you were talented. Your knife skills in the kitchen were magnificent, and now this. Wonderful archery, simply wonderful. I always said you were the best man in our unit. I was actually worried about you. That's why I came to watch. Now I can rest easy knowing you'll pass the archer exam with no trouble at all. This man, the same man who threw me out like yesterday's fish guts was now pretending he came here out of fatherly concern. The audacity was almost artistic. I had to admire it the way you admire a really well-constructed lie. You know it's garbage, but the craftsmanship is impressive. I smiled back, gave him a polite little fist salute, and said it was all just luck. Playing humble, playing dumb. Meanwhile, I filed away that cold flash in his eyes for future reference. Season Wutai wasn't just a petty corrupt kitchen boss. He was calculating something. He knew that if I succeeded and rose through the ranks in the Archer Corps, I might eventually come back and make his life very uncomfortable. And he was right. I absolutely would. But for now, smiles all around. Just two guys grinning at each other while mentally sharpening knives. Workplace politics at its finest. I went back to shooting. Fired 8 more arrows, deliberately missing 4 and hitting 4. Had to keep up the illusion of inconsistency. Every time I missed, I caught Season Wutai and the deputy manager looking relieved, practically glowing with satisfaction. Every time I hit, their faces twitched with barely concealed disappointment. These 3 clowns were an open book written in large print with illustrations. Then my system dinged again. The experience bar filled up completely, and my archery upgraded from beginner to skilled level. The new description made me want to dance. Within 10 zhong, arrows will hit the center. Not just the target anymore. The center. The bullseye. Every single time. Guaranteed by the system's iron rules. Yesterday, I was a fish decapitator. Today I was a bullseye machine. Character development is a beautiful thing. Of course I kept this upgrade to myself. No need to reveal that particular card just yet. Let them all think I'm still wobbly and unreliable. The exam isn't today. Old Lee pulled me aside with genuine excitement shining through his weathered old face. He told me something actually useful. Apparently, in the Archer exam, there are 2 possible outcomes. If you perform exceptionally well, you get labeled a potential archer, and senior officers personally pick you for mentorship and fast-track promotion. That means better pay, access to advanced combat techniques, martial arts manuals, real weapons, and actual career growth. But if you just barely pass, you become a formation archer. That's basically standing in a big group with a bunch of other mediocre newbies and firing arrows in the same general direction during battles. Like being one raindrop in a storm. Sure, the arrow rain kills enemies, but individually you're nothing special. Minimal rewards. Minimal training. Minimal everything. You'd spend months or years just being a human arrow dispenser with 0 personal development. Obviously, I wanted the potential archer route. Old Lee advised me to stabilize my shooting over the next 2 days and try to hit as many bullseyes as possible during the exam. If the officers saw consistent center shots, they'd fight over recruiting me. I nodded and agreed. What Old Lee didn't know was that my inconsistency problem was entirely manufactured. I could already hit center every time. But telling him that would require explaining a magical murder-powered leveling system. And that conversation seemed complicated. We packed up the arrows and left the training grounds together. I needed to go register at the soldier transfer station since I was officially no longer kitchen staff. Just a free agent waiting for the archer exam. As we walked away, I glanced back one last time. Season Wutai was standing there with his arms crossed, staring at me with undisguised hatred now that he thought I wasn't looking. The friendly mask was completely gone. He was genuinely worried. A talented archer who hated him was a future problem, and he knew it. I caught his eye deliberately, gave him a tiny smirk, then casually turned back around like nothing happened. Behind me, I could practically hear his blood pressure rising. He was probably standing there touching his fat belly and wondering why I kept looking at him. Does he think I'm handsome? No, buddy. I think you're a dead man walking. You just don't know it yet. First things first, Season Wutai needed to die. Not eventually. Not metaphorically. Actually die. Tonight, preferably, under cover of darkness, nice and quiet. See, my system isn't called Friendly Neighborhood Experience Grinder. It's called the Kill God system. Killing things makes me stronger. Fish and chickens gave me a pathetic 0.01 points each. I confirmed that bigger animals gave more. So logically, killing an actual human, especially a corrupt, greasy, backstabbing whale of a human, should give me a serious jackpot. Season Wutai wasn't just a personal enemy. He was a walking experience piñata, and I fully intended to crack him open. But murder could wait until sundown. Right now I had bureaucracy to survive, which honestly felt almost as dangerous. I headed to the soldier transfer station to register for the archer exam. The place was packed. Recruitment posters covered every wall. The infantry section was practically a ghost town, just a few guys standing around laughing at the posted benefits like it was comedy material. And honestly, it was funny in a morbid way. Infantry pay had been raised again, now triple what archers earned. Sounds great until you realize why it's so high. Everyone who signed up before was dead. Their unclaimed bonuses just got recycled into the next recruitment poster like some kind of death pyramid scheme. Hey, come collect the salary of all the guys who died before you. Terms and conditions. You will also die. Some loudmouth nearby was trying to talk his buddy into enlisting. His buddy's response was perfect. If it's so great, you sign up. That money's high because the last guys aren't alive to spend it. Their corpses are basically funding your recruitment ad. Poetry. Absolute poetry. I'll admit, infantry did have one advantage for my system. Close combat means more kills, which means more kill points. But I wasn't stupid enough to trade guaranteed death for faster grinding. My personal motto, survive first, get overpowered second. In that order. Always. So I walked past the empty infantry booth and joined the archer registration line instead. And when I say line, I mean a human snake that wrapped around the building 3 entire times before I found the tail end. Apparently, every living person in this military district had the same idea as me. Nobody wanted to be infantry, so the archer queue looked like a theme park ride on the busiest day of the year. I started waiting, and waiting, and waiting some more. 1 hour passed, then 2. My stomach started making noises that sounded like a dying cat trapped inside a drum. I hadn't eaten since last night's leftover beef foot soup. Acid was crawling up my throat. My belly button was practically touching my spine. But the line had shrunk dramatically, and I could almost see the registration window. No way was I abandoning my spot for food. I'd rather digest my own organs. I pressed my hand against my screaming stomach, closed my eyes, and tried to enter some kind of energy-saving hibernation mode. Just a little longer. Almost there. Then, after another brutal half hour of standing in this sweaty sardine can of desperate soldiers, the registration officer shouted, "Last 10 spots. Everyone after number 10, go home." Next recruitment period. Chaos erupted behind me instantly. Cursing, shoving, full-blown emotional breakdowns. But I did the math and nearly collapsed with relief. The big, messy-haired guy behind me counted heads from the window backward. I was number 9. He was number 10. We both made it. 3 hours of starvation and suffering, but we made the cut. I was about to allow myself one tiny moment of happiness when 2 guys appeared out of absolutely nowhere. They were different from everyone else in line. Tall, handsome, clean skin, expensive-looking clothes. The kind of guys who'd never waited in a line in their lives. They shoved past messy hair guy, yanked my sleeve aside, and casually strolled to the front like they owned the entire military district. The registration officer didn't even blink. "Ah yes, young Master Liu, you're number 9. And young Master Liu II, number 10. Registration complete. Everyone else, dismissed. Come back tomorrow, I'm sorry." What? 3 hours. No food. Stomach eating itself. And 2 pretty boys with connections just waltzed in and stole our spots like we were holding their places in line this whole time? My blood pressure spiked so hard I think I briefly achieved a new form of enlightenment powered entirely by rage. Messy hair guy exploded first. He started screaming at the officer about fairness and justice and how they clearly just cut in line. I backed him up because honestly, beyond being furious, I was terrified. Tomorrow was the deadline. The infantry recruiters were coming to forcibly draft people. If I didn't register for the archer exam today, there might not be a tomorrow where I had any choice at all. I'd get snatched up as cannon fodder before breakfast. The officer told us to shut up and leave. The 2 Liu brothers glanced back at us with these infuriatingly smug little smirks, like we were insects complaining about the weather. The crowd behind us, all the people who also didn't make the cut, caught fire. Everyone started screaming about corruption and unfairness. The situation was rapidly approaching riot territory. Then someone important walked out from the back office. An older guy, well-dressed, clearly outranking everyone present. He raised his hands for silence and made a grand announcement. In the interest of fairness, all remaining people in line today may register. Oh, thank the heavens. Relief washed over me like cool water on a burning day. But then this distinguished gentleman walked straight over to me and messy hair guy and slapped our shoulders with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. These two were complaining about unfairness. Yes? Let's give them fairness. We'll test them first. Let's see if they meet the basic strength requirements for registration. His mouth said, fairness. His eyes said, I'm going to enjoy failing you. The registration officer caught on immediately, grinning like a shark. Of course, sir. Let's skip dinner and thoroughly examine whether these two gentlemen possess adequate arm strength. So let me get this straight. I starved for 3 hours, got my spot stolen by rich kids, nearly got kicked out, accidentally started a mini revolution, and now the guy who solved the problem was going to personally make sure I failed the strength test as punishment for speaking up. My stomach growled one final time, as if to remind me that on top of everything else, I still hadn't eaten. Cool. Everything was going great. One look at that officer's smirk, and I knew exactly what was coming. The senior guy who'd walked out and heroically announced, everyone can register, wasn't being generous. He was being strategic. He'd identified me and Messy Hair Guy as the troublemakers who started the crowd revolt, and now he was going to make us pay for it through the beautiful bureaucratic art of making exams impossibly hard. Their weapon of choice? Stone rollers. 2 of them, 100 pounds each. The test was simple. Hold one in each hand, arms straight out to the sides, perfectly horizontal, for half an incense stick's burning time. No shoulder movement. No arm shaking. Just stand there like a human letter T while gravity tries to rip your arms from their sockets. Now, this particular test was ancient history. Some previous emperor created it back when military service was actually cushy, good pay, high status, minimal dying. Back then they could afford to be picky. Nowadays, with barbarians invading from every direction and the empire literally on fire, nobody used this standard anymore except the elite units like the Flying Dragon Army. Our crappy little border garrison hadn't tested like this in years because if they did, they'd spend 6 months and still not recruit enough archers to fill a single brigade. Messy Hair Guy figured this out immediately and started protesting. Poor bastard. He knew the rules. Knew this was the elite standard being deliberately weaponized against 2 nobodies who dared complain about rich kids cutting in line. His face went from angry to pleading to devastated in about 3 seconds flat. The officer didn't care. Told him to lift or leave. Messy Hair couldn't do it, started yelling about unfairness again, and got physically dragged out by guards before he could finish his sentence. Gone. Just like that. 3 hours of waiting, stomach empty, dreams crushed, and now he was being paraded past the entire line as a warning to everyone else. And boy, did that warning land. Every single person in that queue went dead silent. The message was crystal clear. Sure, complain about corruption. Maybe you'll even win a small victory, but we'll remember your face and destroy you later. Classic power move. The crowd that had been screaming about justice 5 minutes ago suddenly developed a very convenient case of amnesia. Those 2 brought it on themselves. Should have kept their mouths shut. Nothing to do with us. Beautiful. Truly heartwarming solidarity from my fellow soldiers. I made a mental note to never rely on a mob for anything meaningful ever again. Meanwhile, the other applicants behind us were getting the relaxed version of the exam. Officer glances at your muscles, checks you're not visibly dying of disease, stamps your paper. Next person, please. Some of them were through in literally seconds. No stone rollers. No endurance tests. Just a casual once-over and a handshake. 3 people passed while Messy Hair was still being escorted out crying. Then the officer turned his attention to me. Your friend failed. Still want to try? I looked at the 2 stone rollers sitting on the ground like a pair of smug gray bullies. 100 pounds each. Arms out straight. Half an incense stick. Here's what this clown didn't know. I had the strength of 100 men. Not figuratively. Not. I'm pretty strong for my size. Literally 100 times normal human strength. Each arm could handle nearly 5,000 pounds. These cute little 100-pound stones were like holding 2 apples. 2 very boring, very gray apples. I walked over, grabbed both rollers, and lifted them to shoulder height with my arms extended. The officer's eyebrows twitched slightly. He clearly expected me to struggle immediately, or at least show some strain. Instead, I was standing there holding 200 pounds of stone like I was waiting for a bus. But I'm not an idiot. Showing my full strength to these petty vindictive bureaucrats would only paint a bigger target on my back. So I acted. Started adding a tiny tremor to my arms. A little wobble here, a slight shake there. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to look like I was at my absolute limit, barely hanging on through sheer willpower and determination. Oscar-worthy performance, honestly. The officer watched me for a while, and something shifted in his expression. He went from hostile to mildly impressed. Told me I was actually the strongest applicant he'd seen today besides those two rich Liu brothers. Said if I applied to the Flying Dragon Army or the Crimson Blaze Army, I might even barely qualify there. Then he said the magic words, "Your attitude wasn't as bad as the other guy. You mostly kept quiet during the commotion." His hand came up, and his thumb started rubbing against his fingers in the universal gesture that transcends all worlds, all dimensions, all civilizations. Money. He wanted money. I reached into my belt and pulled out 2 pieces of silver. 3 years of monthly salary, carefully saved. And here I was handing it over to some mid-level registration clerk as a bribe just to get a piece of wood with my name on it. The system giveth and the system taketh. Mostly taketh. He pocketed the silver faster than a lizard catching a fly, tossed me a wooden registration token, and told me to show up in 3 days for the real archer exam. Then he started walking away like he'd just done me the world's biggest favor. But I wasn't done. I chased after him with my most grateful, most innocent expression. "Sir, you're so kind. What's your name? Where's your office? I want to properly thank you someday when I make it into the Archer Corps." He looked mildly surprised that a grunt was being this polite. Told me his surname was Chun, same as mine, single name Xuan. Then I asked about the senior officer who'd come out earlier, the one who'd orchestrated this whole punishment scheme. Got his name too. Huang, the head of personnel. Officer Chin Shuang snorted and walked off, probably thinking I was just another brown-nosing kid trying to make connections. He had no idea what those names were actually for. I pulled out my little notebook, the one I'd been keeping for 3 years. Page after page of names, written in tiny, careful characters. People who'd wronged me. People who'd wronged others. People who were corrupt, cruel, or simply needed removing from the world for everyone's benefit. I wrote down Qin Shuang and Huang the personnel chief, right below the 50-odd names already filling those pages. Right at the very top of the list, underlined twice, was Season Wu Tai. My stomach growled violently, reminding me it still existed and still hated me. I rushed to the mess hall, wolfed down the worst meal I'd had in 3 years, absolutely criminal cooking compared to my own, and wiped my mouth while silently judging whoever made this garbage. Then darkness fell. Perfect. I strapped old Lee's bow across my back, tucked my rusty kitchen cleaver into my belt, and slipped out into the night toward the kitchen barracks. Season Wu Tai's quarters. Time to cross off name number 1. Time to take out the trash. I pulled out my little notebook, my beautiful, detailed, meticulously maintained revenge diary, and started reviewing tonight's shopping list. Season Wu Tai, Zhang Qing the deputy manager, Li Sanqing, Gu Qingluan, and a few other lovely individuals who'd made my 3 years in the kitchen a special kind of miserable. Some names on earlier pages were from before I even joined the army, back when my original family's enemies needed documenting. But tonight was kitchen staff night. Employee appreciation, Chen Xiao style. First target, Gu Qingluan, one of today's enthusiastic hecklers from the kitchen, currently pulling guard duty on the watchtower. And by pulling guard duty, I mean sleeping standing up with his eyes half closed. Professional soldier right there. I crept within 30 meters. My archery skills said, within 10 zhang, arrows hit center mass. Gu Qingluan's forehead qualified as center mass. I knocked an arrow, drew the string, and released. The arrow went through his forehead and poked out the back of his skull like a kebab skewer through a meatball. He dropped without making a single sound. Not a grunt, not a gasp, not even a dramatic final whisper about his mother. Just timber. Down. Dead. 1 kill point deposited directly into my account. I immediately pumped that point into archery proficiency, because why wait? Then I walked up, retrieved my arrow, and used my trusty kitchen cleaver to make identification difficult. Listen, I'm not proud of the mess, but this was war. War against terrible co-workers, which is basically the same thing. Next stop, Season Wu Tai's deluxe private quarters. The man had blackstone floors and carved wooden ceilings while the rest of us slept on dirt. 3 years of stolen bribes really upgraded his living situation. I jimmied the door latch with my cleaver, 1 twist of 10,000-pound grip strength, and the lock basically apologized for existing. Now, What I found inside was something I desperately wish I could unsee. Seasoned Wu Tai, fully naked, lying on his bed like a beached whale at a spa resort, while a woman sat on top of him doing things I refuse to describe in detail. In a military camp, where women were explicitly forbidden, this man had the survival instincts of a lemming with a death wish. The woman saw me first and screamed. Seasoned Wu Tai bolted upright, saw me standing there with a cleaver, and his face cycled through about 15 emotions in 2 seconds. He did the one thing I genuinely didn't expect. He bucked his hips and launched the poor woman directly at me like a human shield. My cleaver was already swinging. The woman flew into the blade's path, and I cut clean through her. The momentum carried the strike into Seasoned Wu Tai's body. He dodged the killing blow by half a body width, which was impressive for a man shaped like a watermelon. Unfortunately for him, his lower leg didn't dodge with him. It went spinning through the air, spraying blood on the walls like the world's most disturbing ceiling fan. He started begging immediately. "Brother Xiao, mercy. It was wrong of me. You're upset about the infantry transfer, right? Forget it. Come back to the kitchen. You can keep working for us." This man, this incredible man, with one leg detached and his life measured in seconds, his negotiation strategy was offering me my old job back. The job where I did all the work and he collected all the bribes. He was literally trying to re-exploit me while bleeding out on his bedroom floor. The audacity was almost superhuman. I'd be impressed if I wasn't so busy decapitating him. One chop. Head off. Goodbye, Seasoned Wu Tai. You will not be missed by anyone, including probably your own mother. I ransacked his room like a professional burglar. Found 30 silver pieces, not bad for a kitchen manager's hidden stash, and a martial arts manual called Minor Body Tempering Art. Now that was the real treasure. This technique could amplify your base strength with each level you practiced. Seasoned Wu Tai had owned this book for years, but only reached level 1 because he spent more time with women than with training. Tragic waste of a perfectly good power-up manual, now in much better hands. The kill points were rolling in beautifully. The woman gave 1 point. Seasoned Wu Tai, being a minor practitioner at the first level of martial cultivation, gave 2. Fat bonus for killing someone with actual cultivation. Mental note filed. Stronger enemies equal better rewards. Must kill stronger people going forward. My career development plan was really coming together. Next door, Zhang Qing, the deputy manager. My old friend who came to the archery range specifically to laugh at me. Found him snoring peacefully. One cleaver swing later, he stopped snoring permanently. Searched his room, found 5 measly silver pieces. Pathetic. Even in death this man was disappointing. I moved through the barracks like the Grim Reaper doing overtime. Door after door. Latch after latch. Every person on my kitchen revenge list got a midnight visit and a permanent retirement. Kill points stacked up like poker chips at a table where I was the only player, and also the dealer, and also the casino owner. By the time I finished, my archery had jumped from skilled level all the way to small success tier. My effective bullseye range extended from 10 to 15 zhang. Quality upgrade. The archer exam was going to be a joke. I stopped at old Lee's door. Just stood there for a moment in the dark, blood-splattered cleaver in hand, bow across my back, surrounded by the silence of a barracks where several people had recently and involuntarily stopped breathing. I wasn't going to hurt old Lee. He was the one genuinely good person in this entire cesspool. I owed him a bow and 3 arrows worth of gratitude, and someday I'd repay that properly. Just not tonight. Tonight I had enough blood on my cleaver. Next morning, the camp was buzzing with gossip. Turns out multiple murders in the kitchen barracks was only moderately interesting news. Soldiers died constantly around here. The general consensus was that enemy scouts snuck in for a nighttime raid. The juiciest detail was Seasoned Wu Tai being found naked with a dead woman, which violated military regulations. People were more scandalized by the nudity than the murder. Priorities. I ate breakfast, returned to my bunk, and cracked open the stolen martial arts manual. Memorized the whole thing instantly, 100 times memory speed, and a new skill appeared on my panel. Minor body tempering. Level 1, not yet learned. Experience needed, 1 point. Effect upon entry, double my current strength. Double my current strength. From 10,000 pounds to 20,000. And there were 10 levels. If each level doubled me, at level 10 I'd hit roughly 50 tons of raw punching power. 50 tons. That's half a blue whale. I could bench press ocean wildlife. I rolled up my sleeves. Time to grind. I stood in a basic horse stance, quieted my mind, and felt my blood energy rise from the soles of my feet, travel up through my legs, gut, chest, and crown, then loop back down my spine and return to the starting point. One complete energy cycle. Took about 15 seconds. Ding. Level 1 unlocked. 20,000 pounds of raw strength. Just like that. I stared at my stats in disbelief. Seasoned Wu Tai spent years practicing this same technique and only reached level 1. I did it during a casual morning stretch. The man dedicated his entire martial arts career to achieving what I accomplished between breakfast and brushing my teeth. Rest in pieces, you magnificent failure. To test my new power, I grabbed my old kitchen cleaver. This thing was a war veteran. 3 years of chicken genocide had left it rusty, chipped, and stained the color of dried blood. But it was actually forged from some special iron captured from barbarian invaders, passed down through generations of head chefs. Decent metal, terrible maintenance. I gripped the blade and bent it. The metal screamed like a cat in a bathtub, twisting into a pretzel shape with zero effort from me. Then I bent it back to normal. Perfect. 20,000 pounds was absolutely insane. I could probably punch through a castle wall and still have enough energy left to complain about the architecture. But I forced myself to stay humble. This world had serious cultivators out there. People who could probably flick me into orbit if they wanted. My current power was impressive by grunt soldier standards. But in the grand scheme of things, I was still a baby fish in a very large, very dangerous ocean full of sharks and sea monsters, and probably some horrifying mythological nonsense I hadn't encountered yet. No room for arrogance. I tucked the cleaver back into my belt and headed to the training grounds for some archery practice. The official exam was tomorrow, and while my archery had already reached the small success tier, accurate bullseye shots from 15 zhong, more practice meant more experience points meant more power. Simple formula. Beautiful formula. When I arrived at the range, I discovered something deeply upsetting. The entire training ground was packed. Wall-to-wall people, all waiting to practice archery, and there was one target. One. For what looked like 200 desperate soldiers. The line to shoot was longer than the registration line yesterday. This was basically driving school all over again. Wait 2 hours for 2 minutes of actual practice. Bureaucratic torture transcends dimensions apparently. I took my place at the back of the line and mentally prepared for another eternity of standing around. Hey, what a coincidence. An elbow jabbed my ribs. I turned around and found myself face to face with a familiar disaster. Messy hair, rough features, dark skin, grinning like we were old war buddies. The guy from yesterday. The one who got dragged out screaming during registration. How was he here? Remember me? It's me. He was practically bouncing with excitement. Did you also bribe your way through? Man, those guys are thieves. They charged me 2 silver pieces just because I made a little noise about fairness. 2 pieces. Highway robbery. My face went dark. 2 silver pieces. The exact same amount I paid. Except I actually passed the strength test legitimately. I held those stupid stone rollers with perfect form while pretending to struggle. This guy got kicked out, found a different officer, and paid the same bribe for 0 effort. That little weasel Chen Shuang charged us identical rates regardless of merit. I mentally underlined his name in my revenge notebook twice. How'd you get back in? You were literally removed by force, I asked flatly. He snorted proudly. The registration office has more than one clerk. Genius. I found a nicer one. Paid up and got my token. Simple. I wouldn't have spent the money normally, but with the infantry draft breathing down my neck, what choice did I have? Same situation as me then. Running from the infantry meat grinder into the archer corps' loving arms. That explained why yesterday's line was so impossibly long. Half the army was trying to escape the same death sentence. Name's Zhang Laobao. What's yours, brother? Chen Xiao? Which characters? Chen as. In display a corpse. Xiao as in sever a head. I stared at him without blinking while slowly crushing a ladybug that had landed on my arm, grinding it into paste between my fingers. A clear social signal meaning, please stop talking to me, dude. Your name literally means display severed heads. That's metal. Kids would cry hearing that name. He laughed like this was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. I gave him the back of my head and said nothing. He eventually got the hint. Eventually. After an uncomfortable amount of additional commentary, the line crept forward. One by one, People stepped up, fired 5 arrows, and retreated in shame. Hit rates were catastrophic. Maybe 1 in 10 arrows actually found the target, and those were clearly accidents. People were shooting with the confidence of someone throwing darts blindfolded at a party. 5 arrows, 0 hits, sad walk back to the line. Repeat infinitely. Up on the observation platform, 3 military officers were watching. 2 were administrative scholars in civilian clothes. The third was different. Proper armor, scaled mail, long sword on his hip, eyes that had seen actual combat. 100 captain named Liu. They were scouting talent for tomorrow's exam and finding absolutely nothing. These recruits are terrible, one scholar sighed. Anyone who actually had archery talent got drafted years ago, the other replied. What's left is just infantry rejects hoping we'll take them. Then it was my turn. I stepped up, drew the bow, released. Thwack. Bullseye. Dead center. Experience point +1. I didn't pause, didn't breathe, didn't adjust. Immediately knocked the second arrow and fired. Thwack. Bullseye again. +1. Third arrow. Bullseye. +1. Fourth arrow. Bullseye. +1. For consecutive center shots without breaking a sweat. No heavy breathing, no dramatic aiming, no adjustment period. Just mechanical perfection, arrow after arrow, like a human turret with unlimited ammunition and 0 recoil. Behind me, Zhang Laobao's jaw was somewhere around his kneecaps. Is corpse head display guy serious right now? Up on the platform, the 3 officers had stopped their pessimistic conversation mid-sentence. 100 Captain Liu was stroking his beard thoughtfully. The scholars were leaning forward with wide eyes. For perfect bullseyes from Tin Zhang without pausing. That wasn't beginner luck. That was trained expertise. They started speculating about my background, my cultivation level, my potential value as a showcase recruit for tomorrow's exam. Liu made a decision. If his 5th arrow hits, we put him first in tomorrow's lineup. Give the other recruits something to aspire to. All 6 eyes locked onto me, waiting for arrow number 5. And that's when I completely ruined the moment by stopping mid-draw and spacing out because my system interface had popped up with some interesting new numbers. I just stood there, bow half raised, staring at nothing visible, fiddling with my invisible stat screen like a guy checking his phone during a job interview. 3 officers on the edge of their seats. 200 soldiers watching in awe. Zhang Laobao holding his breath. And me, totally zoned out, doing mental math about experience point optimization. Everyone was waiting for my 5th arrow. The 3 officers on the viewing platform were stroking their beards so hard I thought they'd pull them clean off. Zhang Laobao behind me was fidgeting like a toddler needing the bathroom. 200 soldiers were holding their collective breath. And there I stood, completely zoned out, doing math in my head while staring at my invisible stat screen like it was a restaurant menu. See, here was my problem. My archery skill needed 100 experience points to level up from small success to great success. 1 arrow on target equaled 1 point. The line behind me was enormous, and I'd be lucky to get a few more turns today. So shooting 1 measly arrow per turn was criminally inefficient. My system didn't care how many arrows I fired at once. It counted every arrow that hit the target individually. 3 arrows hitting meant 3 points. 8 arrows hitting meant 8 points. The math was obvious. The execution was going to be absolutely ridiculous. I started loading 3 arrows onto my bowstring simultaneously. Behind me, Zhang Laobao lost his tiny mind. Bro, what are you doing? Just shoot normally. I'm waiting here. Tomorrow is the actual exam, and I need practice too. Stop messing around. I ignored him completely. Then I looked at his arrow quiver. 5 beautiful arrows sitting there doing nothing useful. Combined with my 3, that made 8. 8 arrows. 1 bowstring. Maximum efficiency. Maximum insanity. Give me your arrows, I said flatly. Zhang Laobao stared at me like I'd asked him to hand over a kidney. What? Bro, no? This is a public military training ground. What if some officer walks by and sees you loading 8 arrows like a lunatic? They'll throw you in detention. Stop being crazy. He started slapping my reaching hand away, genuinely concerned for both our reputations. But I had the perfect bait ready. Give me the arrows, and after I'm done, I'll teach you how to shoot while we wait in line together. His entire personality transformed in half a second. The worried friend vanished and was replaced by a puppy who just heard the word, walk. His eyes went wide, practically sparkling. You'll teach me? Actually teach me archery? For real? Nothing secret about it. You want to learn? I'll I'll teach. Lines are long anyway. Might as well be productive. Zhang Laobao ripped his quiver off so fast I thought he'd dislocate his shoulder. Here, take them all. Shoot however you want. Shoot them at the moon for all I care. You're my brother now. My elder brother. Forever. Unconditionally. This man's loyalty could be purchased for the price of a few archery tips. I respected the simplicity. Up on the platform, the three officers were having their own meltdown. The two scholars had gone from impressed to confused to genuinely offended within about 30 seconds. They'd been ready to crown me as tomorrow's showcase recruit, and now I was fumbling around trying to jam 8 arrows onto one bowstring like a child stuffing too many crayons into a pencil case. Is he seriously attempting 8 arrows at once? One scholar muttered in disbelief. 3 arrows would be mimicking Wu Sanshi, the legendary arrow god who invented multi-shot techniques after months of military training. This kid hasn't even passed the entrance exam yet, and he's trying to double the legend's signature move? The arrogance. 100 Captain Liu, who'd been seriously considering mentoring me, was visibly cooling off. The two scholars were poisoning the well with perfectly reasonable criticisms. Too flashy. Too impulsive. The military doesn't need show-offs. It needs disciplined soldiers who follow orders. Sure, the kid had talent, but talent without temperament was a liability. Maybe assign him to grunt duty for 3 to 5 years first. Let the rough edges wear down. I could practically feel my potential archer status evaporating in real time. But I didn't care. Experience points were experience points. Political impressions could be fixed later. Power couldn't wait. There was just one teensy technical problem. I physically could not hold 8 arrows at the same time. My fingers weren't enough. I got 6 loaded, then 2 dropped on the ground like embarrassing little deserters. I bent down, picked them up, tried again. Dropped 1. Tried again. They kept slipping and sliding around like greased chopsticks. The scholars were practically vibrating with vindication. See? He can't even hold them. His fingers aren't enough? I could feel every eyeball within 50 meters burning into my back. This was rapidly becoming the most publicly humiliating moment of my new life, which was saying something considering I'd spent 3 years as a professional chicken executioner. Then inspiration struck. Stupid, beautiful, completely shameless inspiration. I turned to Zhang Laobao. Hold the bow for me. His face went through about 7 stages of grief simultaneously. Excuse me, what? Grab the bow. Hold it steady. I'll use both hands for the arrows. You want me to hold your bow while you shoot? In front of everyone? On a military practice. Range? Yes. People are watching, brother. Yes. My face may be rough, but it's still attached to my pride. Grab the bow, Zhang Laobao. He grabbed the bow. Because of course he did. Free archery lessons were free archery lessons, and dignity was apparently negotiable. He gripped the bow arm with white knuckles while looking everywhere except at the 200 people now staring at us, like we were a circus act performing without a permit. I'm teaching you, I said calmly, positioning his hands. This is the lesson. Feel the angle. Follow my guidance. Aim where I tell you. Teaching me, he says, Zhang Laobao muttered through clenched teeth, face burning red as a sunset. This man is a certified maniac, and I'm his willing accomplice. I arranged all 8 arrows between my fingers, both hands wrapped around the cluster, string pulled back to maximum tension. My 20,000-pound arms held the draw effortlessly while Zhang Laobao's hands trembled, trying to keep the bow arm stable under the pressure. The entire training ground had gone completely silent. Nobody was practicing anymore. Nobody was even pretending to not watch. The officers on the platform had stopped arguing about my character flaws and were just staring with open mouths. Even the scholars had run out of criticism, temporarily replaced by pure morbid curiosity. I adjusted Zhang Laobao's aim 1 final centimeter to the left. Locked my breathing. Visualized 8 arrows slamming into that red circle simultaneously like a squadron of tiny wooden missiles. Release, I whispered. The bowstring snapped forward. 8 arrows erupted from the bow in a screaming cluster, fanning out slightly as they tore through the air at impossible speed, racing toward that lonely little target 10 zhang away. Every person present held their breath. The arrows flew in a tight formation, whistling with lethal harmony, covering the distance in a fraction of a heartbeat. And I stood there grinning, both hands still extended, watching my beautiful flock of wooden destruction descend upon that bullseye with the absolute certainty that my system would force every single one of them to hit their mark. Because rules were rules. Within range, arrows hit the target. The system didn't care about physics, probability, or the 3 officers currently having simultaneous heart attacks on the viewing platform. 8 arrows. 1 target. 0 doubt. 8 arrows hit that target like a firing squad executing a piece of wood. Every single one buried itself into the bullseye zone, their shafts vibrating and humming in perfect harmony like the world's most violent wind chime. The training ground erupted into absolute pandemonium. The 2 scholars on the platform started screaming like they'd witnessed a miracle, which honestly they kind of had. 100 Captain Lu's jaw dropped so far it practically needed its own zip code. He vaulted off the viewing platform in full armor. This decorated military officer literally jumped off a raised stage and started sprinting toward me like I was a celebrity who'd accidentally wandered into his neighborhood. Around me, every single person who'd been quietly practicing their terrible archery completely abandoned their own training to swarm me. Did he just shoot 8 arrows at once? They all hit. Is this a god disguised as a person? One guy actually ran to the target, pulled out all 8 arrows, and inspected them individually for magnets or witchcraft. Found nothing. Just regular wooden arrows that happened to be shot by someone with a cheat code installed in his brain. People started approaching me reverently, holding my arrows like holy relics. Great master, please teach us your ways. Real devotional energy. I went from kitchen nobody to archery messiah in approximately 4 seconds. Then Zhang Laobao appointed himself as my personal bodyguard and bouncer. He started physically shoving people away from me, yelling, "Back OFF, he's my master. Go practice your garbage shooting somewhere else." This man had known me for roughly 6 hours and was already willing to commit assault on my behalf. I was simultaneously grateful and concerned. He grabbed my arm and started pulling me away. "Elder brother Chun, please, this way. I brought tea from my hometown. Let me serve you. It's excellent quality, very fragrant." I honestly just wanted the experience points, but the crowd was suffocating. Following Zhang Laobao's chaotic escape route seemed better than being crushed by 200 aspiring archers who suddenly wanted to be my best friend. We zigzagged through the mob, ducking between tents, cutting through alleys, until we finally reached a quiet spot behind some storage buildings. Then Zhang Laobao dropped to his knees and slammed his forehead into the dirt. "Elder brother, please accept this humble one's bow of devotion." I grabbed his arm to pull him up and accidentally yeeted him to his feet with one hand. 20,000 pounds of grip strength meeting a 300-pound man resulted in him basically levitating upward like a puppet yanked by its strings. His eyes went dinner plate wide. "What kind of supernatural strength? You lifted me like I weigh nothing." Great. Now he discovered my superhuman power on top of the superhuman archery. His brain visibly short-circuited as he recalculated my value as a patron. "Elder brother, no, great God. Please accept another bow." He immediately dropped to his knees again and started kowtowing like his life depended on it. I stood there watching this grown man worship me behind a supply shed, wondering what exactly I did in my past life to deserve this particular companion. The universe clearly had a sense of humor, and I was the punchline. Meanwhile, back at the training ground, 100 Captain Lu was pushing through the crowd, desperately searching for me. Where is he? The 8-arrow man. Where did he go? Nobody knew. I'd vanished into Zhang Laobao's chaotic extraction like smoke in wind. Lu searched everywhere, growing increasingly frustrated. The soldiers around him offered helpful commentary like, "He was right here a second ago," and, "Yeah, definitely was here, isn't anymore though." Lu nearly exploded. "I know he was here, that's not helpful." Eventually he gave up and walked back to the platform, muttering about wasted talent and missed opportunities. His biggest fear was that I wasn't actually a recruit at all. Apparently elite archers from major armies sometimes snuck into small-town recruitment grounds just to show off and disappear. A prank. He was genuinely worried my 8-arrow display was just some bored prodigy's idea of entertainment, and I'd never actually show up for tomorrow's exam. Now here's where things got interesting without me even knowing. Those 2 pretty boy Lu brothers, the ones who stole my registration spot yesterday, were sitting comfortably in their private tent when their servant rushed in with the gossip. Some unknown archer had just fired 8 arrows simultaneously and hit every single one. 100 Captain Lu had personally come running. The mystery archer was being considered for squad leader position in tomorrow's exam, a position that was supposed to be reserved for the elder Liu brother. The brothers had a quick scheming session that would have made any self-respecting villain proud. Their logic went like this. Nobody actually identified the mystery archer. The crowd saw the performance, but not the face clearly. The archer vanished immediately afterward. Therefore, why not simply claim the elder brother was the mystery archer? Spread the rumor tonight, and by morning, everyone would believe it. During the actual exam, multi-shot techniques weren't even tested. It was standard one-arrow shooting. The elder brother was genuinely skilled at 20 zhang accurate shooting, so he'd perform well enough to maintain the illusion. The only risk was the real archer showing up and exposing the fraud. But the younger brother dismissed this confidently. Any true archery genius wouldn't bother with their pathetic little border garrison. 99% chance the mystery shooter was just passing through for laughs. Gone forever. They summoned their minions. And who walked in to kneel before them? My old friends Chen Shuang, the registration clerk who extorted my silver, and Huang, the senior personnel officer, both on the Liu family's payroll. Both immediately tasked with spreading the lie that the elder Liu brother was the legendary 8-arrow genius. I knew none of this was happening. I was too busy teaching Zhang Laobao basic archery technique in a dark corner of the camp while quietly grinding my own skills whenever he wasn't looking. After the crowd disaster earlier, I kept my shooting boring and normal. One arrow. Standard shots. No fireworks. Just steady, invisible progress, point by point, crawling toward the next level. Zhang Laobao turned out to be a surprisingly dedicated student once you got past the personality. He listened. He tried. He failed. He tried again. I taught him everything the system had given me about stance, breathing, and aim. He wasn't talented, but he was stubborn, which honestly counted for more in the long run. Hours passed. The camp emptied. Night swallowed the training ground until you could barely see the targets anymore. Most sane people had gone asleep. Zhang Laobao eventually collapsed from exhaustion, curled up against a fence post, snoring like a bear with sinus problems. I kept shooting. Arrow after arrow in the darkness, my 100 times eyesight cutting through the shadows easily. The experience bar crawled upward with agonizing patience. 95, 96, 97. Midnight arrived. The camp was dead silent except for distant guard patrols and Zhang Laobao's volcanic snoring. My bar hit 99 out of 100. One arrow away from great success, rank. I knocked my final arrow. Drew the string back slowly, feeling every fiber stretch against my fingers. Aimed at that invisible bullseye I could see perfectly in the dark. Released. The arrow sang through the night air and buried itself into the center with a clean, perfect sound. My skill panel shuddered, glowed, and transformed. My archery hit. Great success. Rank and the new ability was absolutely disgusting. 20 zhang, 60 meters, guaranteed bullseye on every single shot. But the real prize was something called rapid chain arrows. Every arrow returns to one. Sounded poetic. I had to test it immediately. I knocked an arrow and fired. Bullseye. Then without pausing, without breathing, without even properly aiming, I fired a second arrow. It screamed through the darkness and hit the exact same spot, piercing straight through the tail of the first arrow, splitting it perfectly in half, and replacing it in the bullseye. Like a wooden Russian nesting doll of violence. Third arrow. Same thing. Split the second arrow down the middle, took its place. Fourth. Fifth. Each one destroying its predecessor and claiming the throne of the bullseye like a tiny wooden dynasty where every new king murdered the last. I stood there genuinely impressed with myself, which doesn't happen often. Then reality slapped me across the face. I looked at the target. One intact arrow remained. The other 4 were shattered into kindling scattered across the ground like the aftermath of a toothpick factory explosion. I had destroyed almost all my arrows with my own skill. These were the only arrows I owned. The exam was tomorrow morning. Fantastic. Truly brilliant work, Chen Xiao. You've invented the world's most impressive method of disarming yourself. I carefully extracted the single surviving arrow like it was made of diamond and wrapped it up like a newborn baby. This lonely stick of wood was my entire military career now. No pressure. I slept, ate terrible breakfast, and Zhang Laobao practically dragged me to the exam grounds by my collar. The place had transformed overnight. The viewing platform was packed with high-ranking officers. A yellow banner with the character 4, Dragon, fluttered in the morning breeze, the personal flag of Dragon Shutian, the regional military commander. This was the big leagues. The man who controlled the entire northwestern border had come to personally watch a bunch of desperate recruits shoot arrows at circles. Beside him sat Gu Qinghua, the 1,000 captain who commanded all local archer forces, wearing silver armor and carrying a massive silver broadsword like he was auditioning for a war painting. Then the 300 captains, Lu, and Feng. Lu was the one who'd watched my 8-arrow performance yesterday. Lu was the uncle of those 2 pretty boy brothers who stole my registration spot. Zhang Laobao gazed at the officer platform with stars in his eyes. A real man should aspire to sit in those chairs someday. Look at those flags. That authority. I gave him a cold stare and said nothing. We had very different definitions of life goals. The drums thundered. Flags waved. We marched onto the field in formation. And that's when I noticed something deeply unsettling. The guy at the front of the line, the designated squad leader, the presumed strongest recruit, was Lu Ming, the elder pretty boy, my line-cutting nemesis. And he was wearing my outfit. Not a similar outfit. My outfit. The same ratty brown cloth, the same yellowish collar, the same, I've been butchering poultry for 3 years, aesthetic that I'd been rocking since day one. This pampered rich kid, who probably owned silk underwear, was deliberately dressed like a kitchen worker. Like me specifically. Zhang Laobao spotted it too. Master, why is that Lu guy wearing your exact clothes? Then I heard the crowd whispering, and the pieces clicked together with a sickening thud. That's him. The arrow god from yesterday. Look at the clothes, same outfit. Lu Ming is the 8-arrow genius? Makes sense, his family are archery masters. Of course a Lu family prodigy would have that kind of talent. These magnificent con artists had stolen my identity. While I was teaching Zhang Laobao archery in the dark last night, the Lu brothers had been running a full propaganda campaign. They dressed Lu Ming in copycat clothes, spread rumors through their pet bureaucrats, Chen Shuang and manager Huang, naturally, and convinced the entire camp that the mysterious 8-arrow archer was actually their golden boy. Up on the platform, Dragon Shutian was eating it up. I heard a young arrow god appeared yesterday. 8 arrows, all hitting the target. Lu 100 captain knelt with practiced humility. My nephew is merely playing around. Nothing special. Please don't praise him too highly, sir. The man was so good at fake modesty it should have been classified as a martial art. He basically confirmed the lie while pretending to be embarrassed about it. World-class performance. I almost applauded. The officers around them nodded approvingly. Obviously, a Lu family prodigy would produce such talent. Archery bloodline, clearly. What a fine young man. An echo chamber of stolen credit, sealed and delivered before I even arrived at the field. Lu Ming stepped up for his demonstration shot. 20 zhang distance, 5 zhang further than the standard 15 zhang exam requirement. He drew his bow with practiced elegance and released. The arrow flew true and buried itself dead center in the bullseye. The crowd went absolutely berserk. Dragon Shutian nodded with genuine admiration. Lu 100 captain dropped to his knees in theatrical gratitude. The other officers whispered jealously about the Lu family's incredible genetic lottery. I'll give credit where it's due. Lu Ming was legitimately good. 20 zhang with a clean bullseye was no joke. Under normal circumstances, he'd rightfully be the top recruit. But claiming MY 8-arrow technique as his own, wearing MY clothes like a costume, having his corrupt lackeys spread lies while I was innocently teaching archery to a man with the hairstyle of an electrocuted hedgehog, that crossed a line. Lu 100 captain was the only officer not celebrating. He stood silently, staring at Lu Ming with narrowed eyes. He'd actually seen my performance yesterday. He knew the body shape, the stance, the shooting rhythm. And something about Lu Ming wasn't matching his memory. The clothes were right, but everything else was wrong. Lu kept his mouth shut for now, but suspicion was radiating off him like heat from a furnace. Then, beside me, Zhang Laobao's volcano finally erupted. He'd been listening to 200 people call Lu Ming the arrow god, and his patience, never his strongest quality, shattered into a million pieces. What are you people talking about? He roared at the nearest cluster of whispering recruits. That Lu guy is not the arrow god. My master Chen Xiao is the real one. Every head within earshot turned toward us. Zhang Laobao stood there, chest puffed, finger pointing at me like a lawyer presenting Exhibit A to a very confused jury. And me? I stood there holding my single remaining arrow, wearing the original version of the outfit Lu Ming had copied, thinking about how this day had gone from simple archery exam to identity theft courtroom drama in approximately 9 minutes. The exam morning turned into a circus, and I was the unwilling clown at the center of it. Zhang Laobao started screaming at everyone within earshot that I was the real arrow god. Predictably, this went about as well as setting your own hair on fire to get attention at a party. Nobody listened. Worse, people started pushing past him to get a better view of Lu Ming at the front of the line, shoving Zhang Laobao around like a pinball in a machine made of angry soldiers. Then some genius in the crowd actually turned around, looked at me, noticed I was wearing the exact same outfit as Lu Ming, and came to the most spectacularly wrong conclusion possible. Hey, this guy is copying the arrow god's clothes. We got a fake over here. Within seconds, I went from unknown recruit to shameless impersonator. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. I was wearing clothes I'd owned for 3 years. Lu Ming had literally copied my wardrobe overnight like a fashion-obsessed stalker. And somehow I was the fraud. The universe had a genuinely twisted sense of humor, and I was starting to take it personally. The commotion spread like wildfire. More people gathered, more fingers pointed at me, more voices called me a fake. A few recruits who'd actually seen my performance yesterday looked uncertain, sensing something was off, but peer pressure is a powerful drug, and nobody wanted to be the guy defending the alleged impersonator against 200 shouting idiots. Up on the fancy officer platform, Dragon Shutian, the supreme military commander of the entire northwestern border, noticed the disturbance in the crowd and frowned. Lu 100 Captain, that shameless uncle, immediately swooped in with the smoothest lie of the century. Oh, someone apparently admires my nephew so much they copied his outfit. Young people these days, such enthusiastic fans. Dragon Shutian actually laughed at this. Your nephew hasn't even officially enlisted, and he already has followers? Impressive young man. The officers chuckled together like it was the most charming thing they'd ever heard. Meanwhile, I was standing 50 meters away being accused of identity theft by people wearing the same intelligence level as wet cardboard. Behind the crowd, Lu Ming's brother Lu Xiao was watching the situation with cold, calculating eyes. His pet bureaucrat, Chen Shuang, had reported to him about the commotion. Lu Xiao's first instinct was worry. What if the real 8-arrow archer had actually shown up? But he talked himself down. Any archer that talented would obviously be in an elite army, not slumming it at a border garrison recruitment exam. Probably just a coincidence. Probably. He sent his bodyguards toward me anyway, just to be safe. Smart paranoid snake. Meanwhile, Lu Ming was putting on an absolute show at the shooting line. His first arrow from 20 zhang distance buried itself dead center in the bullseye. Dragon Shutian applauded personally. His second arrow, same thing. Perfect center. 2 consecutive bullseyes from 60 meters. The man was genuinely talented, I had to admit. Not 8 arrows at once talented, but legitimately skilled. Enough to sell the lie convincingly. Dragon Shutian was practically adopting him at this point. He praised Lu Ming to the heavens, slapped Lu 100 Captain on the shoulder, and started talking about rising stars and future legends. 1000 Captain Gu Qinghua got so excited he threw in extra prize money and a captured barbarian deer sinew bow worth 50 silver pieces. Everyone was congratulating the Lu family like they'd won the military lottery. Lu Ming's third arrow drifted slightly off-center. Still hit the target, just not perfectly. Dragon Shutian waved it off generously. 3 shots, 2 perfect bullseyes, 1 near miss. He declared Lu Ming ready for immediate combat deployment without further training. High praise from a man who'd probably seen 10,000 archers in his career. Then Dragon Shutian's mood darkened. He mentioned that enemy attacks were imminent. No time for extended training. All recruits who passed today would be sent to Black Cliff Ridge for 7 days of real combat exposure. Not to fight seriously, just to see blood. Get used to the horror. Prepare psychologically for the actual war that was breathing down everyone's necks. 1000 Captain Gu accepted the order with visible sadness. He looked at all of us lined up and mentally calculated that 10 to 20% would be dead within a year. Just kids with bows, marching into a meat grinder with slightly better odds than the infantry. Not exactly a recruitment poster moment. After Lu Ming's performance, the regular testing began. It was depressing. Groups of 12 stepped up, shot 3 arrows each, and almost universally embarrassed themselves. Out of 24 people across 2 rounds, only 2 passed. 3 arrows on target was the minimum requirement, and apparently that was asking for a miracle from this crowd. Dragon Shutian's expression went from enthusiastic to grim to genuinely angry within minutes. And through all of this, Zhang Laobao was still screaming. The man had the persistence of a mosquito and the volume of a foghorn. "My master is the real arrow god," he bellowed at anyone within 50 meters. 2 soldiers finally tackled him and pinned him down, disrupting the examination grounds. "Your testing qualification is revoked." Then 2 more soldiers grabbed my arms and started dragging me away too. Guilt by association. Zhang Laobao's personal crusade to restore my honor was actively destroying my military career in real time. I was being removed from my own exam because my self-appointed disciple couldn't shut his enormous mouth for 5 consecutive minutes. I cursed internally. Every single time I was near this man, catastrophe followed. He was a walking disaster magnet with the tactical awareness of a brick. I should have never taught him archery. I should have never given him my name. I should have pretended to be deaf the moment he first elbowed me in that registration line. Lu Xiao watched from the shadows, smirking. His plan was working perfectly. 2 loudmouth troublemakers claiming to be the arrow god, easily dismissed as attention seekers. Remove them quietly under public disturbance charges, and the Lu family's fraud stayed sealed forever. Clean, efficient, ruthless. But none of these brilliant schemers accounted for one thing. Lu 100 Captain was down on the field doing inspection rounds when Zhang Laobao's howling reached his ears. He turned, annoyed, ready to yell at whatever idiot was causing problems. Then his eyes landed on me. My back, my shoulders, my posture. The way I stood, relaxed but coiled, like someone carrying 10,000 pounds of invisible weight without effort. His memory fired. Yesterday's training ground. The silhouette against the evening sky. The effortless draw. The impossible 8-arrow release. Every detail he'd memorized while sprinting off that viewing platform suddenly overlaid perfectly onto the person being dragged away by guards right in front of him. His whole body went rigid. His eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. The real arrow god. The actual, genuine, certified original. Not sitting in the Lu family tent sipping tea. Not wearing a costume on the shooting line collecting stolen applause. Standing right here, being arrested for impersonating himself, while a fraud paraded around in knockoff clothes collecting prizes that belonged to someone else. Lu 100 Captain's face transformed from confusion to absolute certainty in about half a second, and 3 words formed silently on his lips as recognition struck him like lightning. The real one is right here. Everything was falling apart, and it was entirely Zhang Laobao's fault. As usual, the guards were dragging him away while he screamed, "My master is the arrow god," like a man being kidnapped by aliens and trying to alert the entire planet. Then 2 more soldiers grabbed my arms because apparently standing near a loud person is a crime punishable by immediate removal from your own military exam. I tried the reasonable approach first. Hold on. I never once claimed to be any arrow god. That guy over there said it, not me. If someone points at a random stranger and yells, that's the emperor. Do you arrest the stranger? That's not how law works. The 2 soldiers actually paused, their faces scrunched up with the visible effort of processing basic logic. He had a point. This guy hadn't actually said anything. It was all the messy-haired maniac doing the shouting. But then Chen Shuang, my old friend from the registration desk, the silver-stealing cockroach, pushed through the crowd with perfect timing. Don't listen to him. He and that wild man were causing trouble during registration too. And he's wearing the same clothes as the arrow god. Obviously an impersonator. Behind Chen Shuang, Manager Huang appeared like a secondary infection following a disease. Take them both away. These 2 never even passed the preliminary screening. How did they infiltrate the exam? This demands a full investigation. Beautiful. They were claiming I hadn't passed the test that I absolutely, definitively, stone roller liftingly passed. The test where I held 200 pounds at arm's length while pretending to struggle. The test where I bribed Chen Shuang personally. And now this man was standing here, with my silver in his pocket, telling everyone I'd never been approved. The sheer audacity made Season Wutai look like an amateur. I added an extra underline to his name in my mental notebook. Behind these two stooges, I spotted the real puppet master. Lu Xiao, the younger Lu brother, lurking in the shadows with a satisfied little smirk. Of course, the whole operation made sense now. The Lu family had stolen my identity, dressed their boy in my clothes, spread lies through their bought officials, and now they were trying to physically remove me before I could expose the fraud. If I participated in the exam and demonstrated anything close to my real ability, their entire house of cards would collapse into a pile of embarrassing confetti. The guards tightened their grip on my arms. Manager Huang was shouting for them to hurry up and remove me. Chen Shuang was nodding along like the professional yes-man he was. Behind them, Lu Zhao's eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. And I thought, no, not today, not like this. I'd spent 3 years being quiet. 3 years chopping fish, grinding stats, keeping my head down while corrupt bosses stole from me and cowards laughed behind my back. I'd planned to play it safe during the exam too. Modest performance, don't attract attention, slip into the archer corps without making waves. But sometimes the safe play is the dangerous play. If I let these clowns drag me away, the infantry draft would swallow me whole tomorrow morning. No archer exam, no escape route, just a one-way ticket to the front lines with a sword and a prayer. Playing small would literally kill me. I looked up at the viewing platform. Dragon Shutian sat there under his yellow banner, the most powerful military figure in the region. If I could impress him, no amount of Lu family scheming could touch me. Small people can only crush you when bigger people aren't watching. Right now, the biggest person in 100 miles was watching. Time to stop hiding. I started walking toward the shooting line. The two soldiers were still attached to my arms like human anchors. Their boots dug into the dirt, legs bracing against the ground, every muscle in their bodies straining to hold me back. They might as well have been trying to stop a river with a napkin. I walked forward at a casual, comfortable pace. 20,000 pounds of force versus two guys who probably benched 100 on a good day. My feet moved steadily, smoothly, almost elegantly, while two grown military men were dragged along behind me like children hanging off a shopping cart. Their heels carved trenches in the dirt. Their faces turned red with effort and humiliation. Not one step of mine slowed, even slightly. The crowd went silent. Then the whispers erupted. Is he walking through two soldiers? They can't stop him? Two of them. Look at his arms. He's already pulling out his bow while they're still hanging on him. Up on the platform, officers leaned forward with wide eyes. Dragon Shutian himself noticed. Who is that? Why are two soldiers unable to restrain him? Lu 100 captain jumped in immediately with damage control. That man is an intruder, sir. Not a registered candidate. The soldiers are trying to remove him. Dragon Shutian looked mildly disappointed. Shame. His arm strength is remarkable. Well, remove him then. Lu 100 captain seized the moment. Send more men. If two can't hold him, send 10. Beat him out with sticks. His personal soldiers launched themselves off the platform toward me. Two big guys, armed, moving fast. Then a voice ripped through the air like a thunderclap. Stop. Nobody touch him. Lu 100 captain came sprinting up the platform stairs so fast he left after images. His face was flushed crimson. He was gasping for air, and his eyes were blazing with the righteous fury of a man who'd been watching a fraud unfold all morning while being powerless to stop it. That man down there, Lu shouted, pointing directly at me. I asked the real arrow god from yesterday. The Lu family nephew is not. The platform went nuclear. Every officer's head whipped between Lu and Lu 100 captain like spectators at a tennis match played with grenades. Lu 100 captain's face drained of color so fast you could practically hear the blood retreating. The surrounding officials started exchanging excited glances. Military drama was apparently premium entertainment at every level of hierarchy. Lu 100 captain recovered fast, switching to wounded innocent mode. How dare you slander my family? This is obviously a conspiracy between you and that intruder. He ordered his men to charge down and remove me by force. Two soldiers leaped off the platform. Then Dragon Shutian raised one hand. A transparent palm print materialized in midair and slammed both jumping soldiers back down to the ground like swatted flies. Casual supernatural force. The kind of power that reminded everyone present that this man could probably crush the entire platform and everyone on it with a sneeze. Why the rush, 100 Captain Liu? Dragon Shutian said calmly. Let the boy shoot. If he's no good, your nephew's innocence is proven instantly. Unless you have some reason to be afraid of letting him try. That last sentence hung in the air like a guillotine blade, and beneath it, Liu 100 Captain's neck suddenly felt very exposed. Dragon Shutian basically told Liu 100 Captain to sit down and shut up without actually saying those words. He did it with the elegant diplomacy of a man who could crush everyone present with a wave of his hand, and knew it. Why are you so worried, 100 Captain Liu? I've already seen your nephew shoot. 20 zhong, nearly perfect accuracy. Even if this stranger is decent, how much better could he possibly be? Honestly, this whole arrow god rumor about 8 simultaneous shots is probably just gossip that got exaggerated through retelling. Your nephew is the real deal. I saw him with my own eyes. So just let this nobody shoot and prove himself inferior. Unless there's some reason you'd rather he didn't. That last sentence was a velvet-wrapped grenade. Liu 100 Captain's face went through a fascinating color journey. White to green to a forced smile that looked like someone had stapled it onto his face from behind. He couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. Dragon Shutian had boxed him in with compliments and logic simultaneously. Masterclass in political maneuvering from a man who probably conquered entire territories before breakfast. Dragon Shutian gave the order, let the man shoot, and get those 2 soldiers off his arms. If he misses, he'll just claim the soldiers messed up his aim, and I want no excuses. But here's the thing. Nobody told me the order was coming. I was already shooting. Both soldiers were still dangling from my arms like oversized Christmas ornaments when I drew the bow, knocked an arrow, and let it fly. 20,000 pounds of arm strength meant 2 grown men hanging off me felt like wearing slightly heavy bracelets. My aim didn't waver by a single hair. The arrow screamed across 20 zhong of open air and buried itself dead center in the bullseye. Perfect shot, with 2 humans attached to my body like koala bears on a tree branch. The training ground went so quiet you could hear individual heartbeats. Then the chaos erupted. He hit the target, with 2 people hanging on his arms. 20 zhong. Bullseye. While carrying human luggage, on the platform, brains were breaking in real time. Liu 100 Captain looked like he'd swallowed an entire glacier. The cold realization was spreading from his throat to his stomach that his nephew's carefully constructed fraud was about to be demolished by a kitchen worker with supernatural arm strength and zero respect for social norms. Liu 100 Captain was having the exact opposite experience, his eyes bulging with excitement, mentally calculating how fast he could recruit me before anyone else got their hands on me. Forget the arrows, he was probably thinking. This kid could throw boulders at the enemy and hit them accurately. Dragon Shutian tried to play it cool. Sipped his tea. Pretended his hand wasn't trembling slightly. Interesting. His strength isn't that impressive if he's had martial cultivation training. But that accuracy while loaded down. Even this veteran commander who'd seen every kind of genius couldn't completely hide his shock. The tea sip was a cover, and everyone knew it. Liu 100 Captain launched into emergency damage control mode. Sir, this weighted shooting technique looks impressive, but is pure showmanship. Anyone with moderate cultivation could hold that weight. And if he's specifically practiced shooting with extra load, then of course he'd hit the target. It's a circus trick, not real combat skill. Please don't be deceived. He bowed deeply, selling the performance with everything he had. Give the man credit. He was an excellent liar under pressure. Dragon Shutian nodded politely, partially to save face for not being more impressed, partially to give Liu 100 Captain some rope. Fair point. Have him shoot normally. 3 bullseyes, and I'll speak with him personally. The soldiers finally got the order and let go of my arms. Freedom. My shoulders felt like they'd been relieved of the weight of 2 particularly useless backpacks. I looked up at the platform one more time. Dragon Shutian was watching me directly now. The biggest fish in the entire northwestern military pond had his eyes locked on me specifically. This was my moment. No more hiding. No more deliberately missing shots. No more pretending to be average. 3 years of grinding in obscurity, and the spotlight was finally pointed at exactly the right person. Time to burn it, so bright nobody could look away. I turned around and extended my hand toward Zhang Laobao. Arrows. Give me your quiver. His face split into the widest grin I'd ever seen on a human being. He practically threw the arrow quiver at me. then spun around to face the soldiers who'd been manhandling him minutes earlier. You see? I told you my master was the real arrow god. You just watch what happens next. Every single one of you is about to eat your words so hard you'll need a surgeon to remove them. The soldiers' faces went pale. They'd been dragging me around by my arms, talking trash, treating me like a criminal. If I turned out to be legitimately important, that was the kind of career-ending mistake that haunted military men to their graves. I loaded 4 arrows onto the bowstring. Not 1, not 3, 4. The platform erupted into fresh speculation. Is he going for multi-shot? Is this the 8-arrow technique from the rumors? Lu 100 Captain said his nephew was the arrow god, but this guy, don't jump to conclusions, could still be showmanship. Lu 100 Captain's supporters rushed to his defense. Even if he fires 4, he won't hit anything. Multi-shot is a gimmick. He's just trying to create an impressive failure, so he has an excuse. But I noticed something beautiful. Even the skeptics had stopped blinking. Every pair of eyes on that platform, generals, captains, scholars, servants, all locked onto my hands. Nobody was looking at Lu Ming anymore. Nobody was talking about the Lu family's incredible archery bloodline. The entire gravitational center of this exam had shifted from the front of the line to wherever I was standing. For arrows knocked, bowstring drawn, 20 zhang of empty air between me and that red circle. I aimed. The world narrowed to a single point. For arrows and 1 target. My system guaranteed every shot within 20 zhang would find the center. For arrows meant 4 guaranteed bullseyes. Physics could file a complaint with the universe's management department. I released the string and watched 4 arrows tear through the morning air in tight formation, each one carrying enough force to punch through armor, each one guided by a system that didn't understand the concept of missing, all 4 converging on a single red, that had no idea what was about to happen to it. For arrows left my bow like a pack of wolves chasing the same rabbit. They crossed 20 zhang of open air in perfect formation and slammed into the target simultaneously with a sound like God clapping once. All 4 buried themselves in the bullseye zone, lined up in a perfectly straight horizontal row, forming the Chinese character 4-1, because apparently my system had a flair for calligraphy. The entire training ground, hundreds of soldiers, dozens of officers, 1 supreme military commander, went completely, absolutely, devastatingly silent. Not whisper quiet, tomb quiet. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if time itself stopped to stare. Then I heard a cracking sound from the viewing platform. Every head turned toward Dragon Shutian. The man had gripped his wooden armchair so hard during my shot that both armrests had disintegrated into sawdust. He was standing up, holding 2 fistfuls of wood powder, looking around at everyone staring at him with the expression of a man caught doing something embarrassing at a funeral. "What are you all looking at?" he barked, tossing the wood dust aside. "Terrible chair. Awful craftsmanship. Someone should be fired." Nobody believed him for a single second, but nobody was stupid enough to say so. The most powerful military commander in the region had just involuntarily destroyed furniture because my archery was too impressive. I'll be adding that to my resume forever. The officers started buzzing like a beehive someone kicked. The ones who dismissed me as a show-off 5 minutes ago were now falling over themselves with praise. Extraordinary talent. Both strength and precision beyond anything I've seen. If we cultivate this young man properly, he could become a great general someday. That last guy whispered it, while nervously checking if Dragon Shutian heard him, because apparently suggesting someone might outrank your current boss was a potentially fatal career move even when meant as a compliment. Lu 100 Captain was having the time of his entire life. He was practically dancing on the platform, laughing so hard his armor was rattling. Now do you believe me? Is this enough proof? And this isn't even his maximum. He can do 8 arrows. 8. Most officers nodded sheepishly. Hard to argue with 4 arrows arranged in a perfect line across a bullseye from 60 meters away. But Lu 100 Captain's loyal cronies were still clinging to denial like drowning men gripping driftwood. Must be a plant from another army. Lu probably hired this guy to humiliate the Lu family. His fingers aren't enough for 8 arrows anyway. That's obviously a lie. Lu nearly had an aneurysm listening to them. Then something genuinely unexpected happened. Lu 100 Captain himself stepped forward, dropped to his knees before Dragon Shutian, and surrendered. Just like that. Complete capitulation. "Sir, I was wrong. This young man is clearly superior to my nephew. If his identity checks out, he deserves the top position and all associated honors. The platform went quiet with shock. Lu 100 Captain, the master manipulator, the man who'd orchestrated an entire identity theft operation, was publicly admitting defeat and apologizing. Even Lu 100 Captain stopped celebrating, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. This wasn't genuine humility. This was a strategic retreat. Lu 100 Captain had realized the fraud was exposed beyond saving. So he was cutting losses and repositioning himself as a gracious loser rather than a caught cheater. The man could pivot from villain to humble servant faster than most people could blink. No wonder his superiors loved him. He was insufferable, but brilliantly insufferable. 1000 Captain Gu Qinghua helped him up and smoothed things over diplomatically. Finding talent during an exam is wonderful news for everyone. Your nephew performed well too. Both young men deserve recognition. Translation: let's pretend nobody committed fraud today and move on before this gets uncomfortable for the people who were praising the wrong person 10 minutes ago. Political survival at its finest. But I wasn't done. I still had one more shot in the 3-arrow trial, and I wasn't about to waste it on something ordinary. I knocked for more arrows. The crowd, which had barely recovered from the first volley, immediately started hyperventilating again. He's shooting again. What else could he possibly demonstrate? Maybe he wants to prove his consistency? Show it wasn't a fluke? I aimed carefully, not at the target's empty space, at the 4 arrows already embedded in the bullseye, specifically at their exposed tail ends. 4 tiny wooden shafts sticking out of a target 60 meters away, each one roughly the width of my thumb. I was about to perform the rapid chain arrows. Every arrow returns to 1 technique. The ability that had destroyed all my practice arrows last night. The technique where each new arrow splits its predecessor down the middle and takes its place. Except this time, I was doing it with 4 arrows simultaneously at competition distance, in front of every military officer in the northwestern border region. I released. 4 arrows flew in beautiful curving arcs, screaming through the air with lethal precision. They crossed the distance in a heartbeat and struck the 4 existing arrows exactly at their tail ends. Each new arrow punched through its predecessor, splitting the old shaft cleanly in half, continuing forward with enough force to pierce completely through the entire target and out the back. Where 4 arrows had been, there were now 4 clean holes punched through the bullseye, arranged in that same perfect horizontal line. The target looked like it had been attacked by a very precise, very angry woodpecker. Most officers on the platform couldn't actually see the fine details from that distance. But Dragon Shutian could. His cultivation level gave him eyesight far beyond normal, and what he saw made his eyes literally glow. 4 arrows splitting 4 arrows. Perfect replacement. Every single shot threading through the tail of its predecessor at 60 meters. The mathematical precision alone was inhuman. The power required to punch through both the old arrows and the entire wooden target was monstrous. Combined together, it was the kind of archery that didn't exist in textbooks because nobody had ever been insane enough to attempt it. Dragon Shutian's mind was racing behind those glowing eyes. If this kid was from an elite army, playing games at a border recruitment exam, Dragon Shutian was prepared to throw away his own military rank to demand an explanation. But if this young man was genuinely just some unknown recruit who'd wandered into his tiny garrison by cosmic accident, then Dragon Shutian had just discovered the most valuable military asset in possibly the entire empire. A diamond in a coal mine. A dragon egg in a chicken coop. Either way, this person could not leave his sight. Bring him to my private tent. Now, the command thundered across the training ground. Soldiers scrambled. Officers straightened. The exam was effectively over. Nobody cared about the remaining recruits anymore. The entire military hierarchy had just reorganized itself around one person, and that person was a former kitchen worker whose greatest previous achievement had been efficiently decapitating poultry for 36 consecutive months. I lowered my bow, looked up at the platform where Dragon Shutian was staring at me with the intensity of a man who'd just found buried treasure, and thought to myself, well, that escalated quickly. 3 days ago, I was chopping fish heads. Now the supreme commander of the northwestern frontier wanted a private audience. Career progression in this world was absolutely wild. Soldiers escorted me through layer after layer of security. Guards, barriers, more guards, a narrow passage through what felt like a human maze, until I reached a private tent behind the viewing platform. Dragon Shutian's personal quarters. The kind of place where careers were made or destroyed over a cup of tea. Speaking of tea, they served me milk tea. Not the watered-down garbage from the mess hall. Real milk tea, with actual aroma. The kind of beverage that made you realize you'd been drinking flavored dishwater your entire military career. I almost cried. 3 years of kitchen work, and this was the best thing I'd tasted in this world. Almost worth the whole ordeal of being dragged around by soldiers and accused of impersonating myself. Drink, Dragon Shutian said casually, waving his hand like a man inviting a neighbor over for a chat rather than a supreme military commander interrogating a potential military asset. He studied me while I sipped. I could feel his eyes scanning every inch, my build, my arms, my posture. Then his gaze sharpened, and something changed in his expression. It went from curious to intensely interested, like a jeweler who just realized the rock someone brought in wasn't glass, but an uncut diamond. What he was seeing, I later understood, was my body's raw state. My strength wasn't from years of martial cultivation training. It was pure natural constitution, 100 times normal human baseline, completely undeveloped by this world's cultivation standards. To someone like Dragon Shutian, who could read a person's energy like a book, I must have looked like a nuclear reactor that nobody had bothered to turn on yet. All that power, barely tapped. The potential must have been terrifying. Then the question started, and this is where I nearly destroyed everything. How long have you practiced archery? Are you just here for fun? He asked with studied nonchalance. Fun? No, sir. I'm here to enlist. And I've been practicing archery for about 3 days. The tea in his hand stopped moving. His entire body froze. You said, 3 days? The moment the words left my mouth, I realized my catastrophic error. I'd just demonstrated archery skills that belonged in the legendary master category and casually mentioned I'd picked them up over a long weekend. That was approximately as believable as claiming I'd learned to fly by watching birds for an afternoon. 3 years, I corrected immediately, switching to my most convincing, apologetic face. Sorry, my accent is terrible. Rural dialect. Very confusing. Years. Definitely years. Dragon Shutian stroked his beard, eyes glittering with that sharp, analytical light. 3 years to reach this level. Remarkable. Comparable to Commander Wu Sanshur in his youth. Truly exceptional talent. He bought it. Or at least he pretended to buy it. With men like Dragon Shutian, you never really knew which one it was. Then he started asking weird questions. Where was I from? Did I have family? What was my previous occupation? He was probing, testing, trying to figure out if I was some elite soldier from a major army who'd snuck into his backwater garrison for laughs. Apparently talented archers pranking small-town recruitment exams was a known phenomenon, and he was terrified that his new discovery might just be a bored prodigy on vacation. I answered everything honestly. Moshi Town native. Parents dead. One uncle. Former kitchen worker in the supply corps. Just resigned. Here to kill barbarians and earn glory. He examined my clothes, my shoes, my body language. Looking for any crack in the story. Any hint of expensive upbringing or elite military training hidden beneath my 3-year-old chicken blood-stained work clothes. He found nothing. Because there was nothing to find. I genuinely was a nobody from nowhere with a cheat system and a rusty cleaver. The most elite thing about my background was that I once served beef foot soup to a retired archer with a bad leg. Dragon Shutian sat back down, seemingly satisfied but still cautious. Everything you've told me, is it completely true? You genuinely intend to serve in my archer corps as a frontline soldier? How many times was this man going to ask me the same question in different words? Was this an interrogation or a customer satisfaction survey? Yes, sir. Here to serve. Ready to sacrifice my youth for the military and cut down enemies for glory. I laid it on thick. Patriotic. Eager. The kind of answer recruiting posters dream about. Good. 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 He clapped 3 times, checked my file, confirmed my name, and told me to go wait outside for my reward to be announced. Then he dismissed me. That was it. No grand speech about my incredible potential. No immediate promotion. No secret martial arts manual handed over with trembling reverence. Just a bunch of weird questions and go wait outside. I walked out genuinely confused. Had I impressed him or not? Was he playing it cool? Was this some kind of military mind game? I'd just performed archery that made seasoned officers destroy furniture with their bare hands, and my reward was, go stand over there. What I didn't see was what happened after I left. The moment I was out of the tent, Dragon Shutian dropped the casual act completely and barked orders at his intelligence staff. Take this man's file. Cross-reference everything. Verify his hometown, his family, his work history. Check if any elite army is missing a prodigy. I want answers within half a day before the award ceremony. Move. Now. He wasn't being indifferent. He was being careful. If I was real, a genuine, undiscovered talent with no elite connections, then I was the most valuable find of his career and needed to be protected, cultivated, and absolutely never allowed to be stolen by a rival army. But if I was fake, he needed to know before he publicly invested his reputation. Meanwhile, outside, Zhang Laobao had bombed the exam spectacularly. 3 arrows, 2 on target, which sounded okay except the minimum was 3 for 3. He was out. Rejected. He shuffled over to me looking like a dog that had been left in the rain, bowed solemnly, and delivered a farewell speech about how he'd keep trying, keep training, and one day follow in my glorious footsteps. I bowed back politely while internally celebrating. This man was a walking catastrophe. Every encounter with him had produced chaos, accusations, near arrests, or public humiliation. His departure from my life was the second best thing that happened today, right after the milk tea. The remaining recruits who'd passed stood in formation, waiting for the final results. Feng 100 Captain began reading the official acceptance list. Names echoed across the silent field. Mine was obviously among them. Then he paused. His eyes flicked toward me with a look that carried weight. Now for the final announcement. The top performer of this examination, the one who earns the title of Arrow Champion, 10 silver pieces of prize money, and the captured barbarian Dear Sinew Bao. Every eye on the field turned toward where I stood. Beside me, I could sense the Liu brothers' combined hatred radiating like body heat from a furnace. Somewhere on the platform, Liu 100 Captain was probably grinning. Somewhere else, Liu 100 Captain was probably plotting. And I just stood there, hands clasped behind my back, waiting for someone to officially say what everyone already knew. Liu Ming, Feng 100 Captain's voice boomed across the field like a cannon shot, and my stomach dropped straight through the ground into whatever hell dimension existed beneath this stupid training field. Liu Ming, Arrow Champion, top performer, 10 silver pieces, and the Dear Sinew Bao. Liu, freaking Ming, the guy who stole my registration spot, whose family copied my clothes, who was fraudulently claiming my 8-arrow technique. This guy got the top prize. After I literally shot arrows through other arrows in front of the supreme commander of the northwestern frontier. After Dragon Shutian crushed his own chair watching me perform. After Liu 100 Captain publicly screamed that I was the real arrow god. Liu Ming got the trophy, and I got nothing. The crowd immediately started rationalizing it. Must be an identity issue. Probably a spy from another army. Makes sense they wouldn't reward an outsider. That flashy guy was obviously just showing off. Liu Ming has real skill. 200 people watched me outperform every archer on that field by a margin wider than Dragon Shutian's authority, and they all collectively decided Liu Ming deserved the win because reasons. The human capacity for self-deception in the face of obvious corruption was genuinely awe-inspiring. If mental gymnastics were a martial art, this crowd had achieved perfection rank. I stood there with my fists clenched, eyes narrowed to slits, staring at the platform with an intensity that could have melted iron. If Zhang Laobao had been here, he'd have started a full riot. Part of me missed that ridiculous man. Part of me was grateful he'd already been sent home, so I didn't end up arrested for a second time in the same day. Military examinations are dark, I thought to myself. Fine. I'll carve brightness into this world with my own blade. Then Feng 100 Captain coughed theatrically and continued speaking. There is one more person whose performance was acceptable. By special consideration from senior officers, he will be admitted to the Archer Corps. Chen Xiao, step forward, my name. Said out loud. On the official field. By an actual officer. The relief lasted approximately half a second before Feng 100 Captain absolutely demolished any trace of dignity attached to the announcement. Your archery was adequate, but every senior officer agreed your showmanship was excessive. In the eyes of our military's true archery experts, your little tricks are nothing special, merely passable among new recruits. Furthermore, your multi-arrow stunts violated examination rules, and your final shots punched clean through the target, leaving no arrows on the board. By technical standards, that counts as missing the target. You should have been disqualified entirely. He paused for maximum insulting effect. Leadership decided to keep you purely because of your physical strength. Report to Black Cliff Ridge for combat training. Perform well, and future rewards may follow. I stood there processing what I'd just heard. My arrows were so powerful and accurate that they destroyed the target completely, and the military's official ruling was that I missed. Because there were no arrows left in the wood. Because I'd shot them through the wood. And through the previous arrows. And out the other side. The target was too weak for my archery, and somehow that was my fault. Do you have any objections? Phone 100 Captain flared his energy at me, pressing down with his cultivation aura like a bully flexing at a kid who just wanted lunch money. I bowed deeply. Thank you for your generosity, sir. I will repay this kindness in the future. He heard gratitude. I meant something very different by repay. But context is everything, and Phone 100 Captain was too self-satisfied to notice the distinction. Lu Ming collected his prizes on stage. 10 silver pieces. The gorgeous deer sinew bow. Thunderous applause. Standing ovation from officers who'd been praising my archery 20 minutes ago. He led the entire group in a military oath, spouting patriotic promises about killing enemies and serving the Empire. Every word tasted like someone else's stolen dinner. I turned and walked toward the new recruit barracks. Fist squeezed. Jaw tight. Mental notebook expanding rapidly. Then a hand landed on my shoulder. I spun around, ready to add another name to my list, and found myself face to face with a man in scaled armor with a long sword at his hip and genuinely decent eyes. Chen Xiao? Follow me. I'm Lu Zhongshan, 100 Captain, Liu 100 Captain. The one officer who'd fought for me. Who'd sprinted up the platform screaming that I was the real arrow god. Who'd tried to stop the Lu family's fraud before Dragon Shutian had to intervene. An actual honest person in a military system that seemed specifically designed to produce the opposite. He walked me past the new recruit tents and into the veteran soldiers area. I was being assigned to an experienced squad under someone called Sergeant Chong, apparently the oldest and most skilled squad leader under Lu's command. 10-person unit. Heading to Black Cliff Ridge soon for a real combat mission against northern barbarians. You didn't get Arrow Champion because Dragon Shutian couldn't publicly reward someone who broke examination rules, Lu explained as we walked. If he'd given you the prize after you violated protocol with multi-shot and target destruction, it would undermine military discipline. Rules matter more than talent in the army. Understand? I nodded. He wasn't wrong. I'd been so focused on impressing the top brass that I hadn't considered the political impossibility of rewarding a rule breaker in front of the entire garrison. My performance was spectacular, but my method was illegal. Dragon Shutian's hands were tied. That said, Lu continued, pulling out a wooden box. The commander wanted you to have this. Privately. Tell anyone who asks that you carved this bough from an old tree root back home. He opened the box. Inside lay the ugliest bough I had ever seen in any lifetime across any dimension. It was made from some kind of twisted gray root. The body curved in wrong directions. The surface was covered in bumpy spots like a toad with a skin condition. The color was a depressing ash gray that screamed, I was found in a dumpster. If weapons had beauty contests, this bough would have been disqualified for making the judges uncomfortable. What I asked this? Does it even work? I blurted out before my brain could stop my mouth. Lu 100 Captain glared at me like I'd insulted his mother. Dragon Shutian personally gifted you this weapon. Yes, it works. He leaned in conspiratorially. Let me explain this bow's true capabilities. Then he stopped mid-sentence, reconsidered, and waved dismissively. Actually, forget it. You're nowhere near strong enough to unlock even its basic functions yet. Telling you would just be frustrating for both of us. He literally dangled the secret in front of my face and then snatched it away. Incredible. I was holding a mystery weapon with hidden powers that nobody would explain to me, gifted secretly by the most powerful commander in the region, disguised as garbage. So nobody would steal it. My life had turned into the plot of every martial arts novel ever written, and I was apparently too weak for the next chapter. Lu sent me off with genuine warmth. Told me to train hard, fight smart, and take care of my body. He was a good man, a rare find in this cesspool of backstabbers and credit thieves. I added his name to a different mental list, the very short one titled, People Not to Kill. Later, after I'd left, Lu apparently rushed back to Dragon Shutian's tent to report mission accomplished. The Supreme Commander sipped his milk tea and asked casually whether I'd been grateful for the gift, whether I'd said anything touching or thankful, whether I'd recognized the incredible value of what I'd received. Lu's face went slightly pale as he recalled my exact words. He asked if the bow actually works. I imagine the silence in that tent could have been heard from space. Dragon Shutian choked on his milk tea when Lu told him what I said about the bow. Apparently, the Supreme Commander of the Northwestern Frontier had gifted me his personal treasure, some legendary weapon called the Gray Mountain Divine Root Coil. And my response was, "Does this thing even work?" The man nearly died. Not from enemy combat, from my lack of gratitude. I almost assassinated a general with sheer ignorance. In my defense, the bow looked like someone ripped a root out of a swamp, twisted it into a vaguely bow-shaped pretzel, and called it a weapon. Gray, bumpy, covered in spots, curved in directions bows shouldn't curve. If Ugly had a physical form and decided to become an archery instrument, this would be the result. Nobody in their right mind would look at this object and think, priceless military treasure. They'd think, firewood. But here's what I didn't know at the time. Dragon Shutian had planned everything. He wanted the bow to look terrible. If he'd given me something obviously valuable, every corrupt officer and jealous rival in the garrison would have targeted me immediately. A beautiful bow screams, "Rob this person." An ugly rootstick screams, "This poor idiot found garbage in a forest." The disguise was the protection. He also deliberately denied me the Arrow Champion title. Not because Lu Ming deserved it. Everyone with functional eyes knew I'd outperformed that fraud by approximately 1,000,000%. But publicly rewarding someone who broke examination rules would undermine the entire military discipline system. Dragon Shutian couldn't tell 1,000 soldiers, "Rules don't matter if you're talented enough." That's how armies fall apart. So he gave the trophy to the guy who played by the rules, and secretly gave me the better prize through back channels. Smart man. Infuriating, but smart. He even told Lu 100 Captain that if Lu successfully mentored me into a proper soldier, Lu's long overdue promotion applications would finally get approved. So Lu had personal motivation to keep me alive and thriving. Dragon Shutian had turned my success into everyone's success. Political chess at Grandmaster level, and I was a pawn who didn't even realize he was on a board. The tree that stands tallest catches the most wind, Dragon Shutian reportedly muttered after I left. Poetic way of saying, that idiot needs to stop showing off before someone chops him down. Fair criticism, honestly. Anyway, wagons. Our convoy rattled toward Black Cliff Ridge, a mountain range so dark and ominous it looked like a sleeping dragon made of pure depression. Hundreds of soldiers packed into ox carts, bumping along dirt roads toward a combat zone where northern barbarians were apparently preparing a major assault. New recruits would get their first taste of real warfare. See blood, smell death, either adapt or become part of the scenery permanently. My stats had improved nicely during the journey. While everyone else slept or complained, I quietly practiced the minor body tempering art and broke through to level 2. 30,000 pounds of raw strength now. Each level doubled my base power, and my 100 times talent meant I progressed at a speed that would make normal cultivators weep into their training manuals. Level 3 would only require 88 enemy kills. On a battlefield, that was practically an afternoon's work. A chubby soldier elbowed me mid-meditation, which was becoming a disturbingly common occurrence in my life. "Hey, new guy? You must have serious connections, huh?" Connections. Me. The former chicken executioner with 0 friends, 0 money, and 0 family influence. The man whose most valuable relationship was with a retired archer who had a limp. Chubby explained the situation. Normally, fresh recruits got dumped into formation archery squads or logistics duty during combat missions. Background roles. Safe-ish. But I'd been assigned directly to Sergeant Chong's veteran squad, the number 1 unit under Lu 100 Captain. That was a potential archer placement reserved for either the exam's top performer or someone with powerful backers. Since Lu Ming got the official top spot and was assigned to a different elite squad under Lu 100 Captain's best sergeant, My placement looked like pure nepotism. Everyone thought I was a connected insider pulling strings. The irony tasted like battery acid mixed with lemon juice. 3 days ago, I couldn't even get a registration clerk to process my application without a bribe. Now soldiers assumed I had a secret patron because the military couldn't publicly explain why I'd been fast-tracked. Dragon Shutian's covert reward system was so covert that it made me look corrupt instead of talented. Wonderful. Chubby then pointed toward another wagon. I followed his stubby finger, and my blood pressure immediately spiked. Lu Ming, Lu Xiao, and Qin Shuang. All three of my least favorite humans. Were riding together on a cart heading to the same battlefield. The two pretty boy fraudsters and their pet bureaucrat, apparently inseparable even during military deployment. Qin Shuang had fully committed to his role as the Lu family's personal servant, abandoning any pretense of being a neutral government official. I stared at them across the convoy. Qin Shuang must have felt my gaze because he looked back. Our eyes locked across 50 meters of dusty road like two gunslingers in a standoff. His expression flickered with cold recognition. He knew who I was. He knew what I could do. And behind those calculating eyes, I could see him already planning how to neutralize me before I became a bigger problem for his precious Lu brothers. He leaned over and started whispering to the Lu brothers. Both turned to look at me. For hostile eyes joined Qin Shuang's too. 6 eyeballs of concentrated hatred aimed at my face across the wagon train. I lowered my head and closed my eyes. Not out of fear, out of efficiency. Dead men didn't deserve my attention. They deserved my arrows, and those would come soon enough. The battlefield had a beautiful quality that military camps lacked: chaos. In the fog of war, arrows flew everywhere. People died from every direction. Friendly fire was common and rarely investigated. 3 enemies heading to the same war zone as me was practically the universe hand-delivering my revenge on a silver platter. I resumed practicing the body-tempering art, channeling energy through my meridians while the cart bounced along. Every minute of cultivation brought me closer to level 3. Every mile of road brought me closer to a place where killing was not only legal, but actively encouraged and rewarded with medals. Then a whistling arrow screamed overhead. The convoy erupted into immediate chaos. Soldiers scrambled for helmets. Officers bellowed orders. Shields went up. The fat guy next to me jerked awake so violently he almost fell off the cart. Enemy attack. All units defensive positions. Black Cliff Ridge loomed ahead, dark and hungry. And somewhere in those shadows, the northern barbarians had decided they didn't want to wait for us to arrive. The war had come to us first. I opened my eyes, gripped my ugly gray bow, and smiled. Finally, experience points were about to get a lot easier to earn. Bow and arrows started raining down on our convoy like the world's most aggressive hailstorm. White-tipped, crude, fired from bushes about 30 meters away. Welcome to Black Cliff Ridge. The barbarians couldn't even wait for us to park before trying to murder us. 0 hospitality. 1-star review. I slammed my helmet on and yanked up a shield just as arrows started thunking into the wood around me. Meanwhile, Sergeant Chong, my new squad leader, casually pulled a gleaming steel sword from his hip and started cutting arrows out of the air. Not dodging, not blocking, slicing them in half mid-flight. His blade moved in smooth circles, carving through every incoming projectile like he was stirring soup instead of deflecting death. Arrowheads rained around the cart like wooden confetti. This man was terrifying, and I immediately respected him. Then a skinny guy with a face like a malnourished monkey leaped off the back of the wagon, whipped out a longbow, and started returning fire into the bushes at ridiculous speed. Arrow after arrow, no pausing, no aiming for more than a fraction of a second. His quiver was empty in moments. The bushes went quiet. No more incoming fire. Nice work, skinny monkey. Sergeant Chong slapped the thin guy's shoulder, then jumped over to me with genuine concern on his face. You okay? Not hurt. I was fine. The shield worked. Also, Sergeant Chong had apparently been deflecting arrows specifically to protect my section of the cart. Lu 100 Captain must have given him very specific instructions about keeping me alive. Probably something like, if this kid dies, your promotion dies with him. Good, he nodded. From now on, remember this. Constant vigilance is the only thing keeping you breathing out here. You've never been in combat. Start learning now. Then he turned around and absolutely walloped the fat guy sleeping next to me. One palm strike launched the chubby soldier 3 inches off the cart floor like a human bouncy ball. Fat pig. I told you to watch for enemy attacks and protect Chin Xiao. Why were you sleeping, fat pig? That was apparently his actual nickname. Wiped drool off his chin with the panicked expression of a student caught napping in class. Sorry, boss. Nothing happened though, right? The connected kid is fine, right? What connected kid? Watch your mouth. Right? Not connected, just. Chin Xiao? My precious teammate. Absolutely safe under my expert protection. Fat pig puffed out his chest heroically, apparently forgetting that his expert protection had consisted of unconsciousness and saliva. Sergeant Chang introduced me to the squad structure. Skinny Monkey and Fat Pig were his 2 corporals, each commanding 5 soldiers. The squad was supposed to be 11 people, but 2 had died recently, leaving a gap in Fat Pig's unit. That gap was now me. Lucky me. Assigned to the protection of a man who could sleep through an arrow bombardment. But Sergeant Chang assured me Fat Pig was actually formidable. Apparently beneath all that blubber was serious muscle, and he'd trained since childhood in some kind of iron body defensive martial art. Military crossbows fired point-blank at his torso allegedly couldn't penetrate. He was basically a human tank wrapped in a flesh-colored sleeping bag. That's why he dared nap during active combat. Arrows literally couldn't hurt him. Inconvenient for discipline. Incredible for survival. I immediately wanted to learn his technique. Sleeping soundly while people try to kill you? That's not a combat skill, that's a lifestyle. But I knew better than to ask. Nobody shares their secret techniques in a world where those techniques are the only reason they're still breathing. Teaching someone your defensive art is basically volunteering to become obsolete. We reached the mountain base and hiked up to the defensive position, a gray stone wall circling the ridge, dotted with trenches, dirt barriers, and arrow slots. Real fortifications. Real war. I peered through a gap in the wall and got my first look at the enemy. Northern barbarians. Hundreds of them, wearing animal skins, decorating themselves with wolf fangs and tiger teeth like they'd raided a taxidermist shop. They carried long curved swords and bows, scrambling up the mountainside with the coordination of angry ants swarming a picnic. Our infantry charged downhill with spears and halberds, screaming battle cries. Behind the walls, formation archers assembled into tight squares and started launching coordinated volleys down the slope. Arrows filled the sky like deadly rain. This was the formation archer role old Lee had warned me about, mediocre shooters firing in mass salvos, compensating for individual inaccuracy with sheer volume. Spray and pray, medieval edition. Fat Pig leaned against the wall beside me and snorted dismissively. Normally, you'd be in that arrow formation. Fresh recruits who've never seen blood, doing group shooting drills. But no, somebody's got connections, so instead of joining the noob squad, you get assigned to Uncle Fat Pig for personal tutoring. I have to babysit you and teach you and protect you. Do you know what I could be doing right now? Sleeping. But because of you, Sergeant Chang slapped me awake and ruined the best dream I've had in weeks. He was genuinely upset about the dream. Not about the combat. Not about the barbarians trying to kill us. About the interrupted nap. This man had his priorities laser-focused on unconsciousness, and I could not help but admire the commitment. Fine, he grumbled, pulling 2 arrows from his leg-mounted quiver. Sergeant says teach, I teach. Watch carefully, rookie. I'll fire 10 arrows, finish my quota, and go back to sleep. And I'm starting with something special. He raised his bow casually, almost lazily, like a man reaching for a snack rather than preparing to end lives. This is called the double kill technique. Eyes open, mouth shut. He released both arrows simultaneously. They arced down the mountainside in parallel curves and struck 2 charging barbarians directly between the eyes. Simultaneously, 2 arrows, 2 headshots, 1 release. Both enemies dropped instantly. Fat Pig turned to me with the smugness of a cat who'd just knocked something expensive off a shelf. Well, never seen that before, have you? 1 string, 2 kills. So tell me, rookie, impressed? He wanted me to grovel, to gasp in amazement, to acknowledge his superiority and accept my place as his humble student. Instead, I silently reached into my quiver, pulled out 4 arrows, and loaded all of them onto my bowstring without breaking eye contact with him. Fat Pig's smug expression curdled like milk in summer heat. What? What are you doing, rookie? Just wondering if you could give me some feedback on my form, fat brother. I released all four fingers. For arrows screamed down the mountain in a tight formation, diving into the enemy ranks like birds of prey who'd been personally insulted. For arrows. For barbarians. For instant faceplants into the dirt. My system dinged like a cash register at a clearance sale. 5 kill points. Because one of those guys had actual martial cultivation. Premium loot from premium targets. Fat Pig's eyeballs nearly launched out of his skull. What the? How you? He stared at the 4 freshly deceased barbarians, then back at me, then at the barbarians again, his brain visibly buffering like a computer trying to load a file too large for its memory. That's impossible. You did not just one-shot 4 guys with 1 bowstring pull. You're a rookie. You've been in the army for approximately 12 hours. He pointed aggressively at the formation archers behind us. They did that. The arrow squad. You just happened to shoot in the same direction at the same time. Classic rookie move. Fire where everyone else is firing and pretend you contributed. I've seen this trick 1,000 times. You're not fooling Uncle Fat Pig. He was so desperate to deny reality that he'd constructed an entire alternative explanation in about 3 seconds. Honestly, impressive cognitive flexibility. Wrong, but impressive. Now, normally I'd have corrected him. Showed him the technique again. Maybe done 5 arrows just to really drive the point home. But something stopped me. Sergeant Chong's words echoed, constant vigilance. And not just against enemies. On a battlefield, jealous allies were almost as dangerous as barbarians. Fat Pig seemed harmless, but if I kept outperforming him this dramatically, his bruised ego might curdle into something uglier. The tallest tree catches the most wind and all that. You're right, fat brother, I said with my most humble expression. I think I only actually hit 2. The other 2 were definitely the arrow formation. His face relaxed slightly. 2 kills still matched his own double shot, which he could mentally process without his ego shattering. 2. Fine. I'll record 2 for you. But we check arrows after the battle. Every arrow has a serial number. You're using dead number 10's arrows. If the military merit office finds your arrows stuck in dirt instead of skulls, you're getting punished, not me. Wouldn't dream of faking kills, fat brother. I moved away from him. Far away. As far as the defensive position allowed. Because I had barbarians to murder and kill points to farm, and I wasn't going to waste precious grinding time arguing with a man whose primary life ambition was returning to unconsciousness. I pulled arrows from my quiver and activated rapid chain shooting. My great success, rank archery technique. 1 arrow after another, fired in smooth succession without pause. Each one guaranteed to hit center mass from 20 zhong. No aiming delay. No breathing exercises. Just mechanical, relentless, precision slaughter. Arrow. Kill. Arrow. Kill. Arrow. Kill. Kill point +1. +1. +1. +1. The barbarians had picked what they thought was a weak section of our defensive line for their charge. About 100 of them, decked in animal furs and bone necklaces, rushing uphill with curved swords raised and war cries echoing off the rocks. They hit our infantry head-on and started trading blows. Behind them, more barbarians moved with shields raised, trying to dodge the formation archers' volleys. They dodged the formation. They did not dodge me. My arrows came from a different angle, faster, more accurate, and completely unpredictable. One by one, barbarians who thought they were safely behind their shields suddenly sprouted arrow shafts from their foreheads, throats, and eye sockets. They started panicking. There's a special archer squad down there. One of them screamed. Fall back. Fall back, how? We specifically chose the weakest defense point. They've got elite shooters. We need the Stone Shield Battalion up front before we charge again. The barbarians retreated in disarray, cursing about southern dogs and vowing revenge. I kept shooting until their backs disappeared behind the ridge, picking off stragglers like I was cleaning fish at the kitchen. Except infinitely more satisfying and worth approximately 100 times more experience points per unit. Meanwhile, every single person on this mountain was confused about why this particular barbarian assault had collapsed so quickly. Sergeant Chong looked at the carnage and scratched his head. Did the arrow formation suddenly get amazing? Their accuracy is incredible today. He glanced back at the formation archers and saw Iron Tower Zhang, apparently some legendary arrow squad commander, directing the volleys with expert flag signals. Ah, Iron Tower Zhang is commanding today. That explains it. That man's a genius. He gave Iron Tower Zhang a mental thumbs up and went back to his business, completely satisfied with his wrong explanation. At the exact same moment, Iron Tower Zhang was staring down at our position with equal confusion. Is Sergeant Chang's small squad on steroids today? Their kill count looks higher than my entire 100-man formation. How is a 10-person squad outperforming 100 trained archers? Am I losing my touch? What did old Chang eat for breakfast? He looked at his own arrow squad with disappointment. And it doesn't help that command stuffed fresh recruits into my formation. These newbies can't keep up with direction changes. My efficiency dropped 30%. Meanwhile, Chang's little team is down, they're performing miracles. Two commanders, both crediting the other for my work. Beautiful symmetry of misplaced praise. I was single-handedly winning a skirmish and nobody on my own side knew it was me. Story of my entire life, really. Well, almost nobody. Fat Pig was starting to notice something weird. He watched me fire arrow after arrow and noticed that barbarians kept dying in the exact trajectory of my shots, not the formation's volleys. His tiny pig eyes narrowed with suspicious confusion. But before his two brain cells could complete the connection, I turned to him with my most innocent face. Fat brother, I'm out of arrows. Can I borrow yours? I'll make them count. Out? Already? He exploded. You wasted all your arrows playing copycat with the formation archers? Unbelievable. Fine. Take mine. I was going to sleep anyway. But I swear, if the merit officers find my numbered arrows lying in the grass instead of embedded in enemy corpses, I will personally. Trust me, fat brother. Your arrows will all find good homes. Trust you? I trust you to do tricks. That's what I trust. He shoved his quiver at me and rolled over against the wall, already closing his eyes. Within 30 seconds, he was snoring, on an active battlefield, while barbarians regrouped for their next assault roughly 200 meters away. I strapped on his quiver, pulled out 4 fresh arrows, and looked down the mountain at the retreating enemy forces already forming up for round 2. My system hummed quietly in my mind. Kill points accumulating. Strength growing. Each dead barbarian was a tiny step toward absolute power. This, I whispered to nobody, knocking 4 arrows onto my ugly gray bow, is so much better than killing chickens. Fat Pig handed me his entire arrow supply. 6 full quivers. 50 arrows each, 300 total. Then rolled over onto a rock and fell asleep on an active battlefield like a man who'd made peace with every possible outcome of existence. His last words before entering dreamland were something about me being a fraud and arrows being wasted. Challenge accepted. The moment his snoring started, I entered what I can only describe as a murder trance. Rapid chain arrows. One after another. No pausing. No resting. No thinking about anything except the next target, the next kill, the next beautiful little ding of my system registering another soul departing this world. Kill count, 115. 116, 117. My arrows found throats, foreheads, eye sockets. Barbarians charging uphill with shields? Arrow through the gap between shield and helmet. Barbarians hiding behind rocks. Arrow the moment they peeked out. Barbarians retreating? Arrow in the back. Equal opportunity archery. I didn't discriminate based on direction. Kill count, 253. 254. 258. The barbarians started panicking. They'd chosen this section of the ridge specifically because intelligence told them it was a weak point in our defenses. Instead, they were getting systematically dismantled by what they assumed was an entire elite sniper squadron. Special archer unit. Fall back. Get the Stone Shield Battalion. They scattered like cockroaches when you turn on the kitchen light. An analogy I'm unfortunately qualified to make from 3 years of professional kitchen experience. Kill count, 353. 354, 358. I finally stopped. Not voluntarily. The barbarians had fully retreated. There was nobody left to shoot. The mountainside looked like a war crime exhibition. Bodies sprawled everywhere, arrows sticking out of them at precise angles, all pointing back to one position on the wall. My position, 300 and some kills. One person, one ugly bow, and everyone on my side thought it was someone else's doing. Sergeant Chang looked at the carnage and credited Iron Tower Zhang, the formation archer commander. His volleys must have been exceptional today. Meanwhile, Iron Tower Zhang was staring at our position in disbelief, crediting Sergeant Chong's squad. How is a 10-person team outperforming my 100-man formation? What are they eating? Two military leaders, both baffled, both wrong, both praising each other for my body count. I was the invisible hand of death that nobody could see because they were too busy congratulating the wrong people. If there was an award for least recognized mass killing in military history, I'd have won it by a landslide and nobody would have known to give it to me. Then the military merit officers showed up. These guys were walking tanks, full body armor, face plates, only eye holes visible, stabbing every corpse on the battlefield with spears to confirm they were dead, then carefully extracting arrows and recording the serial numbers on each shaft. Every arrow in the army had an ID. My arrows were marked as Squad 1, number 10, Dead Old 10 serial, since I'd inherited his equipment. Fat Pig's arrows were Squad 1, number 2. I watched from the wall as the merit counters started their work. Didn't take long for things to get interesting. Squad 1, number 10, that's 48 arrows so far, all in separate bodies. 1 arrow per kill. This guy eliminated 48 barbarians solo. 48? That's nothing. You know how many number 2 arrows I've counted? How many? 267. What? 267. One person's arrows. More kills than an entire formation squad. Either we've got an arrow god on the front lines, or I've forgotten how to count. They stared at each other in stunned silence before the second guy talked himself down. Probably just arrow lending. Number 2 had extras, gave them to teammates to use, banking the merit credits for later trades. Happens all the time. No way one person actually killed 267 enemies. Reasonable explanation. Completely wrong, but reasonable. An hour and a half later, Fat Pig finally woke up. Stretched. Yawned. Scratched places that shouldn't be scratched in public. Then his eyes fell on his arrow quivers. All 6 of them. Empty. 300 arrows, gone. His face went through a transformation that scientists should study. Confusion. Disbelief. Horror. Rage. Grief. All 5 stages of loss compressed into approximately 4 seconds. Where are my arrows? He started searching frantically. Behind rocks. In trenches. Under his sleeping stone. Behind the wall. In the dirt. Everywhere a lazy person might accidentally drop 300 projectiles. Found nothing. Then he grabbed my collar with both fists and started shaking me like a maraca. Did you shoot them all? Tell me you didn't shoot them all. I shot them all. You. 300 arrows. All of them. In the ground. My monthly supply. He was crying. Actually crying. Not about the battle. Not about the dead barbarians. About his arrows. His monthly allocation, gone in 90 minutes. He was convinced every single one was lying in the dirt somewhere, wasted by a rookie who couldn't hit the broadside of a mountain. The merit officers would see 300 of his arrows scattered across empty ground, and he'd never receive another arrow shipment again. His reputation would be destroyed. His career, over. His napping privileges, revoked. Fat brother, I promise they weren't wasted. Almost every single one hit someone. Liar. You expect me to believe a DOLD recruit shot 300 arrows and hit anything? I should mention, not every arrow was a clean kill. Some barbarian elites were genuinely skilled. One guy caught my arrow mid-flight, smiled at me, and threw it back like a return-to-sender package. I had to duck behind the wall to avoid being skewered by my own projectile. Rude. Also, the Liu brothers and Chun Shuang had been positioned nearby in another special archery unit and kept stealing my kills with their own long-range shots. Every head they sniped was experience points stolen from my pocket. Mental notebook, updated. Murder timeline, accelerated. Fat Pig was still shaking me and sobbing when a voice cut through the chaos behind us. Are you Squad 1's number 10 and number 2? We turned. A fully armored merit officer stood there, carrying a massive cylinder of recovered arrows on his back, his eyes gleaming through the tiny slits in his faceplate with an intensity that could only mean one thing. Finally found you too. Fat Pig's grip on my collar loosened. His tear-streaked face went pale. He was absolutely certain this was the moment his career died. I, on the other hand, was pretty sure this was the moment mine was about to get very, very interesting. The merit officer dragged us toward the reward tent, and Fat Pig was having a complete emotional breakdown the entire way. See, Fat Pig was 100% convinced he was walking to his own execution. In his mind, 300 arrows with his serial number were scattered across the battlefield, stuck in nothing but dirt and rocks, and the merit office was about to publicly humiliate him, dock his pay, and probably never give him another arrow as long as he lived. He was already rehearsing his defense speech, which mostly consisted of blaming me. The merit officer shoving him forward didn't help his anxiety. This particular officer had personal history with Fat Pig. Apparently last time the squad won a pot of beef stew as a reward, Fat Pig volunteered to carry it back for the team and, accidentally, ate half the pot on the way. Sergeant Chong went to complain. The merit officer got yelled at by his boss, and the whole mess traced back to one gluttonous corporal who couldn't resist free beef. So yeah, this officer hated Fat Pig with the burning passion of a man who'd been professionally embarrassed by a walking appetite. Fat Pig started panic bribing immediately. "Brother, no. Elder brother, please forgive me. I'll buy you dinner. 3 days of feasting at the best restaurant in town. And girls. The best girls. Top quality. Very pretty. Very. Shut up and walk." The officer shoved Fat Pig through the tent flap so hard the big man practically bounced. Inside, Sergeant Chong stood with the rest of our squad, and behind a desk sat the military merit commander, the officer in charge of distributing rewards and punishments after every engagement. Fat Pig saw the commander, saw Sergeant Chong's unreadable expression, and his survival instincts kicked in with the worst possible strategy: immediate groveling. His knees buckled. His nose started running. He was halfway to the floor when his mouth vomited out the most pathetic confession in military history. "It wasn't my fault. This new kid Chen Xiao, he ruined everything. He doesn't know the rules. He wasted all my..." The commander caught him. Physically stopped Fat Pig from kneeling. Not to punish him. To embrace him. "Such incredible merit, and you're trying to bow to me? I should be bowing to you. Someone bring this hero a chair." Fat Pig's brain shut down completely. 2 soldiers carried in a fancy wooden chair with a cushion and gently lowered his substantial rear end onto it. He sat there with the expression of a man who'd prepared for a funeral and accidentally walked into his own birthday party. What is happening?" he whispered. "What is happening?" The commander boomed, practically glowing with joy. "Is that you, Corporal Zhu, single-handedly killed nearly 300 barbarians in one morning? You are an arrow god. A legend. A one-man army." Fat Pig's neck swiveled so hard I heard vertebrae cracking. He stared directly at me. His tiny pig eyes were wider than I'd ever seen them. Wider than when he slept, wider than when he ate, wider than when Sergeant Chong slapped him awake. Those eyes contained a galaxy of confusion, disbelief, and the slow, horrifying dawn of understanding. And such humility. The commander continued, completely misreading Fat Pig's emotional collapse as modesty. "A warrior with 300 kills, and instead of boasting, he walks in here and tries to kneel. Sergeant Chong, the soldiers you train are magnificent." Sergeant Chong's eyes flicked. To me for half a second, a look loaded with meaning, before he smoothly replied, "Corporal Zhu normally sleeps half the day and shoots for about 5 minutes. Today he apparently shot all day and only slept 5 minutes. Just a slight increase in effort. Nothing extraordinary." The sarcasm was thick enough to spread on bread, but the commander was too excited to notice. "Rewards. Gold, 10 taels. Silver, 100 taels. My personal yellow ridge power bow. And 300 replacement arrows with 12 clean quivers." Immediately, soldiers scrambled to fulfill the order. Fat Pig sat in his fancy chair, watching treasures pile up in front of him like a man experiencing a hallucination he desperately hoped was real, but was terrified might end. Then it clicked. I could see the exact moment his remaining brain cell connected the dots. His head slowly rotated toward me like a lighthouse beam of horrified realization. The arrows. His arrows. Serial number 2. 300 of them. All found embedded in enemy corpses. Not in the ground. Not wasted. In barbarians. Every single one I'd fired had found a home in someone's vital organs. Everything I told him was true. The 4-arrow kills were real. The rapid shooting was real. The reason barbarians kept dying in my shooting direction wasn't because I was copying the formation archers. It was because I was personally and methodically exterminating them at a rate that exceeded an entire 100-man squad. Fat Pig had called me a fraud, a show-off, a rookie who played tricks. He'd slept through the single greatest individual combat performance in the history of Black Cliff Ridge. And now he was receiving gold, silver, and a legendary bow for work he'd done absolutely none of. His face went white as fresh snow. It was him, he muttered, looking at me with an expression that combined gratitude, terror, shame, and the specific horror of realizing you've been catastrophically wrong about everything. He really did shoot all my arrows into actual enemies. Every single one. While I was sleeping. Then the commander turned to me, smiled warmly, patted my shoulder. And you must be the new recruit, Chen Xiao? Your first battle, and already 48 confirmed kills. Impressive for a newcomer. With a teacher like Corporal Zhu here, you'll be catching up to him in no time. 48. My personal arrows. Dead Old 10 serial number. The other 267 kills, the ones from Fat Pig's arrows, were credited entirely to Fat Pig. Because they had his serial number. Because he'd generously donated his entire arrow supply to me, and then taken a nap. Fat Pig got 300 kills, a fortune in gold and silver, and a legendary bow. I got 48 kills and 20 silver tails. I had accidentally made Fat Pig the most decorated soldier in the entire battle while giving myself a modest participation trophy. My own ammunition had betrayed me through administrative bureaucracy. The military merit system didn't care who fired the arrow. It cared whose name was stamped on the shaft. And Fat Pig's name was on 267 killing shots he'd slept through. Not bad for a newcomer. The commander repeated cheerfully. Keep learning from your master, my master. They thought Fat Pig taught me. That the sleeping lump of lard who'd called me a fraud for 6 straight hours was my mentor. That his incredible kill count was the teacher's achievement, and my modest score was the student's humble beginning. The reward was 20 silver taels. The insult was immeasurable. Sergeant Chong watched all of this unfold with eyes that saw everything and a mouth that said nothing. After the ceremony, he placed one hand on Fat Pig's shoulder and one on mine. You two, come with me. We need to discuss some things privately. His eyes held a look that said he knew exactly what had happened on that wall today. And whatever he was about to say next was going to be very, very interesting. Sergeant Chong led us into a narrow alley where nobody could overhear. Fat Pig was practically levitating with anxiety. But having launched off that fancy reward chair like the cushion was made of hot coals. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know if it was punishment or something worse. Sergeant Chong pulled a peanut from his pocket, cracked it between his teeth like a man with absolutely zero urgency, and looked at both of us with those deep, calculating eyes. No outsiders here. Let's be honest. Those 267 barbarians. Who actually killed them? Not me. Fat Pig blurted so fast the words practically tripped over each other, escaping his mouth. Me, I said simply. I figured. Sergeant Chong chewed his peanut thoughtfully. Lu Captain told me some things about you before you arrived. I didn't fully understand what he meant at the time. Now I do. Turns out Lu Captain had given Sergeant Chong very specific orders about me. Protect him at all costs. Teach him everything you know about military combat. Hold absolutely nothing back. His exact words were apparently, this boy's archery talent deserves the best protection. Coming from a decorated 100 captain about a rookie who'd been in the army less than a week, that was either an extraordinary endorsement or an elaborate prank. Sergeant Chong had assumed it was exaggeration. After watching me single-handedly match the output of an entire arrow formation while my assigned bodyguard napped, he'd revised that assumption aggressively. Then came the speech about trees. A seedling is most vulnerable when it first sprouts, Sergeant Chong said, switching into wise mentor mode so smoothly I wondered if he'd rehearsed it. It needs to hide, drink cold dew, absorb quiet nourishment, and accumulate strength underground before it can become a towering tree. If it grows too tall too fast, the wind will snap it in half. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. Stay low. Stay quiet. Don't let anyone know how strong I actually am. The military was full of jealous rivals, political factions, and backstabbers who'd gladly cripple a rising talent just to prevent competition. Dragon Shutian and Lu 100 Captain had invested in me, but investments attract thieves, especially investments that can outshoot entire companies of trained soldiers before lunch. Then Sergeant Chong turned to Fat Pig with the look of a man about to deliver life-changing news to someone who was absolutely not prepared for it. I said all of this in front of you deliberately, Corporal Zhu. Do you know why? Fat Pig's pig eyes went wide. He did not know why. Because I'm assigning you a new role. You are going to be Chun Zhao's light blocker. His what? His light blocker. His cover. His shield against attention. Everything Chun Zhao does from now on. Every kill, every incredible shot, every battlefield miracle gets credited to you. He shoots 300 barbarians. Your achievement. He pulls off some impossible archery technique. Your talent. He performs at a level that should be physically impossible for a single human being. You did it in your sleep. Literally, Fat Pig's face performed the most complex emotional gymnastics I'd ever witnessed on a human face. Joy battled terror. Greed wrestled with self-preservation. On one hand, he'd be receiving unlimited military merit for work he didn't do. Promotions, rewards, legendary weapons, gold. All for the low price of taking credit for someone else's killing spree. On the other hand, and this was the hand currently strangling his enthusiasm, the enemy army apparently had specialists called sprout pullers. Their job? Identify talented young soldiers on the opposing side and assassinate them before they could grow into serious threats. If Fat Pig's name became attached to 300 kills per battle, he would become the sprout that needed pulling. A giant glowing target painted on 250 pounds of sleepy flesh. And it wasn't just external threats. Lu 100 Captain had political enemies within their own military. If Fat Pig became too famous, those internal rivals would come sniffing around, looking for ways to undermine Lu's faction through his most decorated soldier. High reward, higher risk, and a very uncomfortable combination of both. I don't know about this, boss. Fat Pig whimpered. This isn't a discussion. Sergeant Chong cut him cold. This is an order. You don't get to choose. Neither do I. Neither does Lu 100 Captain. When someone like Chun Zhao enters the army, everyone around him gets their fate tied to his, whether they like it or not. That's what happens with genuine, once-in-a-generation talent. He started walking away, then paused for one final instruction. Oh, and one more thing. Lu 100 Captain was very clear about this. Under no circumstances should you praise Chun Zhao or tell him how talented he is. Applause has buried more geniuses than any enemy ever could. Keep his ego grounded. Let him think he's still developing. The moment he believes he's arrived, he stops growing. Then he left. Just walked off, leaving Fat Pig sitting on the ground in a narrow alley, staring at the sky, trying to process the fact that his entire military career had just been permanently fused to mine, like a barnacle welded to a submarine. I walked out of the alley feeling lighter than I had in days. The arrangement was perfect for me. I needed to kill as many enemies as possible to feed my system, but I also needed to stay invisible while doing it. Fat Pig was essentially volunteering. Well, being voluntold, to absorb all the fame, glory, danger, and assassination attempts that my performance would generate. He was my human lightning rod, my camouflage blanket, my walking, snoring, endlessly complaining shield against the consequences of being too good at murder. Military merit? I didn't need much, just enough to trade for weapons, techniques, and martial arts manuals. The real currency I cared about, kill points, couldn't be stolen by administrative serial numbers. Every barbarian I personally killed still fed my system regardless of whose arrow was in the corpse. Fat Pig could have all the official credit he wanted. I'd take the invisible power. As for my ugly gray bow, I gave it an appreciative squeeze. Whatever hidden abilities it contained, it had performed beautifully today. Fired hundreds of arrows without complaint. Handled my growing strength without cracking. The thing looked like a diseased tree root, but shot like a weapon forged by gods. Dragon Shutian knew exactly what he was doing when he chose this gift. Ugly on the outside, devastating underneath. Kind of like me, actually. Except I was slightly better looking than the bow. Slightly. I was processing all of this, feeling genuinely optimistic for the first time since arriving in this world, when I heard a rustling sound directly behind me. I spun around instantly. 3 years of chicken slaughtering reflexes combined with 100 times normal reaction speed meant I was facing the source of the noise before most humans would have registered hearing it. Someone was there, in the shadows, watching me. And given that I was standing on a mountain crawling with barbarians, political enemies, and apparently professional talent assassins, the list of people who might be lurking behind me ranged from mildly inconvenient to actively trying to end my existence. I gripped my ugly bow and narrowed my eyes into the darkness. I stepped out of the alley feeling pretty great about my new arrangement when I heard rustling behind me. Spun around instantly. 100 times reflexes don't mess around. And saw a familiar rat face poking out from behind a wooden rack. Chin Shuang. Registration desk cockroach. Liu family professional bootlicker. Standing 10 meters away with a bow drawn and an arrow pointed at approximately where my spine had been 2 seconds ago. The moment our eyes met, his murder face dissolved into the warmest, friendliest smile you've ever seen. Like a man greeting his favorite nephew at a holiday dinner. He casually shifted his aim toward a nearby bush and released the arrow into the grass. Just chasing a rabbit. Pesky little thing ran all the way over here. He jogged to the bushes, made a big show of searching around, then sighed theatrically. Darn, it escaped. Oh well. You know how it is. The Liu brothers aren't used to military food, so I'm hunting some fresh game to supplement their meals. Anyway, gotta go find another rabbit. Bye. He bowed politely and scurried off. A rabbit. This man had been crouching behind a wooden rack with an arrow aimed at my back, and his cover story was rabbit hunting. On a military mountain. During a war. In a narrow passage between fortifications where no rabbit in its right mind would ever go. I almost raised my bow and put an arrow through the back of his retreating skull right there. My fingers actually twitched. But Sergeant Chong and Fat Pig were still talking in the alley 15 meters away. Witnesses. Bad timing. Soon, I whispered to his disappearing back. Very, very soon. Fat Pig emerged from the alley shortly after, having completed his private briefing with Sergeant Chong. His mood had shifted dramatically. He threw an arm around my shoulders like we were lifelong brothers and announced we were going drinking. His treat. With MY kill money. Technically, but pointing that out seemed counterproductive to maintaining our new partnership. We hit the military kitchen and Fat Pig ordered enough food to feed a small village. Meat dishes everywhere. Red braised pork piled high. Military rations were apparently excellent for replenishing blood energy, which was exactly what my cultivation needed. Eat more meat, brother. Fat Pig shoved an enormous chunk of pork onto my plate. From now on, we're grasshoppers tied to the same rope. You do the killing, I take the credit, and we both pretend this is normal. Easy, right? Then his face fell. Except for the part where barbarian assassins called sprout pullers will start trying to murder me because they think I'm the one killing 300 of their soldiers per day. And the part where internal military rivals will target me out of jealousy. And the part where my fat head becomes the most wanted trophy on the entire battlefield. He grabbed his own neck, squeezing the rolls of fat protectively. They're going to try to chop this beautiful head right off. I patted his chubby chin reassuringly. Relax, fat brother. I'll help protect you. You won't face the danger alone. He sighed into his wine cup and started talking about his family's iron body martial art. Apparently what I'd witnessed, him sleeping through arrow bombardments, was only the beginner version. He had to consciously maintain a reserve of blood energy while sleeping, which only lasted about 2 hours. After that, his defenses dropped, and he was as vulnerable as anyone else. But his father had mastered the complete technique. Full unconscious defense. Sleep 8 hours straight with zero conscious effort, and your skin stays hard as steel the entire time. Arrows, blades, even crossbow bolts, nothing could penetrate. The ultimate passive defense system. A martial art literally designed for professional nappers. I wanted that technique desperately. On a battlefield where night raids were apparently a regular occurrence, sleeping safely was basically a superpower. But it was his family's inherited secret art. Asking to learn it would be like asking someone for their social security number and their grandmother's maiden name. Just not done. Mental note. Grind enough military merit to purchase a similar technique from the Army's reward catalog. Defensive arts were absolutely going on the shopping list. We drank until dark. I kept myself mostly sober because I had murder scheduled for later tonight. Ate plenty though. All that meat flooded my system with blood energy, making my cultivation practice afterward incredibly productive. I found a quiet corner and stood in horse stance for hours, channeling the minor body tempering art. By midnight, my stats looked healthy. Archery experience had climbed to 498 out of 1,000 toward perfection rank. Body tempering was at 56 out of 100 toward level 3. A few more days of grinding, and I'd break through to 40,000 pounds of strength. Progress was delicious. Time to take out the trash. I suited up, armor on. ugly gray bow across my back. 3 captured barbarian bow and arrows in my quiver. Untraceable, no serial numbers, perfect murder weapons. A standard military long knife at my hip. I slipped out into the darkness and crept towards Squad 2's camp, where Qin Shuang slept near the Liu brothers. The route was short and unguarded. I'd memorized the layout days ago. Within moments I was outside their tent, listening to the sounds of sleeping soldiers inside. Then I hesitated. Sneaking inside to kill Qin Shuang meant potentially waking other people. If the Liu brothers saw my face, the game was over. I needed them dead eventually too, but not yet. Not without a clean opportunity. Rushing this would create more problems than it solved. New plan, ambush. Between the tent and the latrine was a stretch of grass. Perfect hiding spot. Everyone pees eventually. Even boot-licking bureaucrats with apparently excellent kidney function. I'd wait in the grass. And the moment Qin Shuang stepped outside for a midnight bathroom trip, one bow and arrow through his skull and vanish. I settled into position and waited. 1 hour. Nothing. This man's bladder was apparently forged from the same iron as Fat Pig's skin. Not a single bathroom break. Not even a stirring from inside the tent. The most well-hydrated soldiers in history apparently all lived in Squad 2. I yawned. This guy's kidney function is actually impressive. Credit where it's due. I was about to give up and head back when a scream ripped through the night air. Enemy and I. The word, attack, never finished. A bone-white arrow punched through the sentry's throat mid-shout. But the man was tough. With his dying breath, he managed to fire a signal arrow into the sky. It screamed upward, trailing sparks, alerting the entire camp. Then his body toppled off the watchtower like a sack of sad potatoes. I looked toward the darkness beyond our perimeter and saw them. Barbarian raiders. A dozen or more, wearing animal furs, carrying torches and curved swords, stumbling through the dark terrain toward our position. Night raid. Aimed directly at Squads 1 and 2. People started scrambling out of tents, half-dressed, fumbling with armor. Too slow. The barbarians were already too close. They spotted us. Charge. Kill as many southern dogs as you can. A barbarian leader wearing a wolf-fang necklace bellowed the order, and his warriors surged forward, crashing directly into Squad 2's tent. And who was the very first person to emerge from that tent, fully dressed, fully armed, moving with the speed of a man who slept with one eye open? Qin Shuang, the rabbit hunter himself, already alert, already equipped. First one out the door, shouting for the Liu brothers to wake up and gear up. I stared at him from my hiding spot in the grass, bone arrow already knocked on my bowstring, and smiled. I'd been waiting an hour for this man to come outside and pee. Instead, the barbarian army had flushed him out for me. Free of charge. Express delivery. Early bird gets the worm, I whispered, drawing the bowstring back. But tonight, the early worm gets the arrow. Qin Shuang stepped out of the tent first, shouting for the Liu brothers to hurry up and get dressed. Beautiful. Magnificent. The man I'd been waiting an hour to catch peeing had instead been hand-delivered to me by the barbarian postal service. Express shipping, no signature required. My bow and arrow was already knocked. No serial number. No traceable origin. Just a dead barbarian's leftover ammunition about to fulfill its ultimate destiny. I released. The arrow crossed the gap like a white streak of karma and punched straight through Qin Shuang's throat. He grabbed his neck with both hands, blood pouring through his fingers like water through a broken dam, and face-planted into the dirt, dead before he finished his sentence. His last words were literally, "The young masters haven't finished dress. AGHK. Goodbye, Qin Shuang. You charged me 2 silver pieces for a registration I'd already earned, tried to get me kicked out of my own exam, spread lies about my identity, and most recently attempted to assassinate me while pretending to hunt invisible rabbits. Your customer service rating was 0 stars and your obituary will not be missed." Lu Ming came bursting out next, hair wild, sword swinging, already chopping down a barbarian soldier who'd gotten too close. He ran to Qin Shuang's body, checked for breathing, found none. His face contorted with rage. Filthy barbarians. You'll all die for this. He charged into the barbarian raiders like a man possessed. Brave. Stupid, but brave. I had 1 bow and arrow left. 1 untraceable shot. And Lu Ming's head was right there, lit by torchlight, completely exposed, raging at enemies who hadn't actually killed his servant. I debated for approximately half a second. Then I made my decision. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Barbarian night raid. Chaos everywhere. Bow and arrows with no serial numbers. The perfect frame job was literally happening around me without any setup required. If I didn't kill him now, I'd spend months trying to engineer another chance this clean. I drew my ugly gray bow to full moon. 10,000 pounds of force loaded into the string. Released. The arrow hit Lu Ming's skull with so much power it split his head open like a watermelon dropped from a rooftop. Just pop. Two halves, flying apart, contents everywhere. Gone. Instantly. The man who stole my arrow champion title, wore my clothes like a costume, and claimed my 8-arrow technique as his own family legacy was now decorating the ground in a way that made identification very, very difficult. From inside the tent, Big Brother, Lu Zhao's scream pierced the chaos. The younger, smarter, more dangerous Lu brother. I stared at the tent entrance, last bow and arrow gripped tight, waiting for his head to appear so I could complete the family reunion. He didn't come out. This cautious snake heard his brother's skull explode like a firecracker and immediately decided the outdoors were not for him. He started screaming from inside the tent, fully armored. I could see his silhouette through the fabric, wearing a full-face helmet that covered every inch of his head. He'd basically turned himself into a human turtle, shell and all. Someone find out which barbarian sniper did this. My family will have revenge. I was genuinely annoyed. Lu Ming had charged out heroically and died heroically. Lu Xiao cowered inside a tent wearing maximum protective gear and survived through pure cowardice. Sometimes cowards outlive heroes, and the universe shrugs about it. I snapped my last bow and arrow in half with my bare fingers and threw the pieces 100 meters away. No evidence. No traces. Then I switched to Fat Pig's arrows, serial number 2, and started doing what I was born to do. Rapid chain arrows. One after another. Barbarians dropping like dominoes in a hurricane. The night was dark, but my 100 times eyesight cut through the shadows like they were slightly tinted windows. Every shot found a throat, an eye socket, a gap in armor. Kill after kill after kill. Fat Pig stumbled out of his tent looking like a bear who'd been woken from hibernation by a fire alarm. Half drunk, eyes barely open, drool still glistening on his chin. He saw me already shooting and his face went through the now familiar cycle of confusion, amazement, and professional panic. How is this guy already fighting? I haven't even located my pants. Then he remembered his new job description. Light blocker. Human lightning rod. The man whose name would be attached to whatever mountain of corpses I was about to create. Fat Pig took a deep breath, slapped himself across both cheeks hard enough to leave handprints, and charged forward into the most committed acting performance of his military career. Rag. Feel the wrath of Uncle Zhu. None of you barbarian scum will survive this night. He positioned himself directly in front of where I was shooting, raised his bow, and started making the most dramatic, exaggerated shooting motions humanly possible. Full arm extension. Theatrical releases. War cries after every fake shot. He looked like an action hero in a stage play designed for audiences sitting 300 meters away. He wasn't actually hitting anything. His arrows went into the general darkness, probably striking rocks, trees, or the philosophical concept of aiming. But in the chaos of a night battle, with torches flickering and shadows dancing, all anyone could see was a massive armored figure screaming battle cries and firing arrows while enemies dropped around him. The partnership worked perfectly. I shot from behind cover, accurate, silent, lethal. Fat Pig performed in front, loud, visible, completely useless, but incredibly convincing. Every barbarian I killed, he claimed with a triumphant roar. Every headshot I landed, he celebrated like he'd done it himself. We were the world's most dysfunctional two-man army, and we were absolutely crushing it. My kill counter climbed like a rocket. 572, 573, 574. Every point went straight into archery experience. The bar was racing toward perfection rank. If the barbarians kept attacking for another hour, I might actually max out my archery skill completely. Inside the tent, Lu Xiao was still screaming, demanding investigations, swearing vengeance, and absolutely refusing to step outside. Soldiers rushed around fulfilling his orders while he huddled in full-plate armor like the world's most overdressed child hiding from thunder. Part of me respected the survival instinct. Most of me wanted to shoot him through the tent fabric. But not tonight. No more bow and arrows. Any kill now would carry traceable serial numbers. Lu Xiao would have to wait. As long as I kept getting stronger, even his uncle the 100 captain wouldn't be able to touch me. Power was the ultimate protection, and I was accumulating it at a rate that defied logic. The experience bar climbed relentlessly. The barbarians were getting decimated. Their night raid, which started with explosive momentum, had stalled completely. My arrows were harvesting their assault force like a farmer cutting wheat. They started panicking, trying to retreat, but retreating downhill while being shot at was even worse than charging uphill. Then their commander stepped forward. Full armor, faceplate, nothing exposed except eye slits. He planted himself at the front of his retreating troops, spinning a long spear so fast it created a wall of steel that deflected every incoming arrow. His presence immediately stabilized the barbarian morale. Soldiers who'd been fleeing suddenly reorganized, forming defensive formations, retreating in orderly fashion under his protection. I had to admit, this barbarian leader was the real deal. Brave enough to be a human shield for his entire unit. Skilled enough to swat arrows out of the air with a spear. Exactly the kind of opponent my system wanted me to hunt. Probably worth serious kill points if I could get through that spinning death wall. But the really interesting development was happening on the barbarian side, far from my ears. Their scouts had identified the source of the devastating archery. A large, pig-shaped soldier screaming war cries and firing arrows with deadly precision. The one killing our warriors is surnamed Zhu. Built like a mountain. Arrows never miss. He screams like a demon. The barbarian commander's eyes narrowed behind his faceplate. Surnamed Zhu? Named after a pig? Strange name. Almost sounds like one of our beast clan bloodlines. No matter. He fights for the enemy. He dies like the enemy. Send word to the sprout puller. I want this pigman eliminated before he becomes a bigger problem. The sprout puller. The professional talent assassin Sergeant Chong had warned about. The barbarian military's answer to enemy prodigies. Find them young, kill them early, prevent them from ever becoming a real threat. And they thought Fat Pig was the prodigy. Fat Pig, who was currently performing an elaborate pantomime of archery, while I did all the actual killing from 15 meters behind him. Fat Pig, whose greatest combat achievement tonight was successfully locating his pants before entering the battlefield. That Fat Pig was about to have a professional assassin dispatched specifically to end his life. The arrangement was working exactly as designed, and it was absolutely going to get Fat Pig killed if I didn't figure out how to protect him. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, the barbarians were retreating, my experience bar was climbing, and somewhere in a tent behind me, Lu Xiao was crying in full body armor about a brother whose death would forever be blamed on the very barbarians I was currently exterminating. I knocked another arrow, aimed at the retreating enemy formation, and smiled in the dark. Justice wasn't always pretty, but it was always satisfying. The barbarians started retreating, and our infantry smelled blood. Kill the leader. Big merit points. Someone screamed, and 7 brave soldiers charged the barbarian commander like a pack of dogs attacking a bear. It went about as well as that analogy suggests. The commander was from something called the Snake Tribe, and his spear technique was called explosive stab. Fancy name. Simple result. 7 thrusts, 7 throats punctured, 7 good men hitting the ground in under 3 seconds. One of them was a dual hammer warrior. Big guy, impressive muscles, absolutely zero survival time against a spear that moved faster than regret. He dropped his hammers, grabbed his spurting neck, and collapsed with the expression of a man who deeply regretted his career choices. Skinny Monkey tried next. He's the sharpshooting corporal from our squad, the one who'd cleared an entire bush full of barbarians during the convoy ambush. He found an angle behind a boulder, waited for the perfect moment, and fired an arrow directly at the back of the commander's skull. The arrow shattered on impact, bounced right off. The commander was wearing some kind of diamond-grade armor that apparently laughed at conventional weaponry. Then, without even looking, he whipped his spear backward and hurled it through the boulder Skinny Monkey was hiding behind. Through the boulder. Solid rock, perforated like wet paper. Skinny Monkey took a shoulder wound and barely escaped with his life, which was honestly an achievement given that most people who attracted this commander's attention died within the same sentence. 2 big brothers from Squad 2, the Blockhead twins, apparently known for their incredible arm strength and 500-pound bows, tried a coordinated attack. Left and right simultaneously, arrows screaming in from both flanks. The commander caught both arrows with his bare hands. Mid-flight, like picking fruit from a tree. Then he threw them back at the brothers with enough force to kill. Fat Pig saved them. His double kill technique, the one he'd so proudly demonstrated to me hours ago, intercepted both reflected arrows mid-air, shattering all 4 projectiles into splinters. Genuine skill from the man who spent most of his combat career unconscious. Even I was mildly impressed. So the situation was, one barbarian commander with indestructible armor, superhuman reflexes, a spear that could pierce geological formations, and the fighting style of someone who'd been professionally murdering people since childhood. Against him stood one injured monkey, 2 stunned blockheads, 1 fat actor, and approximately 0 people capable of actually hurting him. Well, 0 people that anyone knew about. Fat Pig shuffled over to me, keeping his voice low. "Brother, we've got a problem. That commander is at least level 8 in body tempering. 8 or 900 pounds of raw power. Skinny Monkey can't crack his armor. The Blockhead twins can't get past his reflexes. The sergeants are away on some classified mission. If we don't kill him now, he'll finish covering his troops' retreat and just leave. One big jump with those legs, and he'll vanish into the mountains. Gone forever." He pointed at the commander's faceplate. 2 eye holes. Tiny slits in otherwise impenetrable full-face armor.